You are now listening to the Old Head, New Head podcast with your hosts, Eric Iberg and Ethan Schaefer.
Goddamn kids.
Shut up, old man!
Word. What you smoking on there?
We'll be smoking on the same thing again this week. First of all, I got a big thanks to Big Lazy Susan, man. They allow me to fucking unlimited supply of rolling papers, and then I get to roll my shit up. And big thanks to the ganja farmer, Mr. Ross Jacob from Dark Horse Farms. He makes sure we set to talk for hours. I don't even think Johnny's ready, but fucking check out Dark Horse Farms for people that, a couple people that see it. I don't even know, you can't see that shit. But Jake will get you covered in whatever you need in the CBD THC world. And we'll have a little code for discounts below this show.
Beautiful. You got the big old jar every week.
Fuck yeah, man. I gotta make sure it stays full. If we start to see it get empty, start to get concerned.
You think Jonny Moseley smokes weed?
I heard some stories. So, in my research, and I know, I don't remember if I've smoked with him or not, but I don't know. I guess we have to ask if the stories are true.
Beautiful. We'll find it out. So I guess we already told everyone who we're having on this week.
We did.
Yeah. It's kind of big.
It's the biggest for me on the Giving Flowers shows, on all of these shows. I knew it was big because I've been a fan since I was a teenager. But when said and done, I really realized how big this fucking shit is. Jonny Moseley might be the biggest action sports character. Up there with Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bigger in his own realm. So, it's going to be really fun to break this down because I want to thank you for having your platform because, tell me what you told me before. What did you know about Jonny Moseley before I pitched him to you?
Dude, Jonny Moseley, and I'm going to tell him this too, so the audience is going to have to listen twice, but I knew him as a kid. So he competed at the Olympics in 98. I was born in 98. So Jonny Moseley to me is the Warren Miller narrator. That's all he is.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm so thankful that we're doing the show because once again, it's kind of, you got to know where you came from to know where you're going. And I think one of the coolest things in this sport, I think it's on the verge of another revolution. And Jonny was the reason the whole revolution happened. After hot dogging, then it turned into moguls, aerials, and ballet. Jonny was the catalyst that allowed the birth of free skiing to be a legitimate sport. People to be legitimate, like Tanner Hall in a video game and shit like this at age 17. So it'll be fun to go through all of his stories because I don't think there's no one bigger. Candide wasn't even bigger than him. This guy, he hosted MTV shows for a decade.
He hosted SNL.
Yeah, he's on the Letterman show twice.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on and on of awesome shit. Fucking U.S. Open champion, X Games, fucking silver medalist after the Olympic gold. Probably the first person ever, we'll get into it, that won an Olympic gold and an X Games medal. Over anyone. Any sport ever. He was the first guy ever to win a medal in both events. So, yeah, but we still got a little bit. I told him 11, so.
It's all right. His SNL monologue was good. I thought it was going to be maybe corny, whatever. It was actually, funny. I was laughing.
Wait, the one where you're talking where he brings out the piece of paper and starts reading it before he even looks at it?
Yeah.
That's how you can tell he was just a ski bro.
Yeah.
Where you're just dude, you were so nervous.
It was so good.
Teleprompter and memorized your script.
It was so good. And
the other part is that we'll get into, man, that's crazy, is this guy, you have to understand, he probably went into the Olympics in 98 only getting free skis as a career on the U.S. team.
Yeah.
And by the end of 98, all that shit happened. Millionaire, pro model ski the next year. It's so crazy to think because when people say in this sport there's not a lot of money in it, everyone who did freestyle in the 80s and 90s, there was no money. There was free skis. That's it. You were not legally allowed in 1998 to do an event like X Games and participate in the Olympics because everyone used to have to be amateur. So like you weren't allowed. So he was the first person that changed the rules for the Olympics other than the dream team in the Olympics, Summer Olympics, when they were professionals and competed. Right. So if you watch that whole generation, skiers were forced to be amateurs and not allowed to make money if they were the best. There was a pro mogul tour in the 90s. They had sprints, bumps, and jumps, which was 2 events for an aerialist to win money. But you couldn't be an aerialist on the U.S. team until 98 and then win money. So they said, be on the U.S., represent U.S., don't make money, get some free skis. Just like bobsledders today or skeleton people.
This one. So, I mean, our idea, you and me, our ideal is like, I geek out hard over the old heads, you geek out hard over the new heads. But this one, it's going to be full on Iberg fangirl over the old heads.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, he was on my wall as a kid, you know, like, and to know what he did and part of our sport, to know that he never got his flowers. He only participated in our sport for 2 fucking years, right? 98, he won moguls. 99, he was in every TGR, MSP, Poor Boys film that you could imagine. 2000, and also he got second place in Big Air at X Games. 2000, he's like, fuck it. Came out and won US Open slopestyle, right? Was doing like switch rodeo 10s, was doing dinner roll 10s. You go, what? And so then he dominated in 2 years of actually skiing through movies and contests. 2001, he's like, yo, fuck it. I'm going to go back to the Olympics, change the rule book. And then he did it, went and got 4th place, changed the rule book, and then pretty much disappeared. Like, it was like, it's just fucked up, man. Like, every single thing he did, like, and the more I learned, I'm like, how did I not know that?
Yeah.
Johnny, the Muffin Man. We'll learn about the Muffin Man today.
Hey, I got 2 questions for you. First question, where are you coming to us from this week?
Probably the same spot I come to you every day. Excelsior, Minnesota. 55331.
Let's go. I am back at Goodwin's Airbnb. Shout out to Win. Shout out to Josh Fraser. 3 episodes in a row. I get to hang out at the Airbnb and record some episodes. But that's in Welch's, Oregon, by the way. Everyone check it out. Check out the ski shop. Check out the Airbnb. It's a great spot. My other question for you is, what's that little new ski you got in the corner to your left right there?
This ski is like a 1968 K2 winter heat, right? So when Mosley got his first pro model in 98 after he won the Olympics, K2 gave him a pro model like this. And then instead of like winter heat had a little yellow part, it was kind of twin tipped. And then it said Mosley on the tail. I bought this ski when I first moved to Utah at a Desert Industry, which is like a Goodwill in Salt Lake. I got that ski for $10 because Mosley had a pro model. And I was like, yo, that looks like Mosley's pro model. And now, 26 years later, I'll fucking show Johnny and ask him if he got that fucking ski that he designed his first pro model ever after.
Have you ever met Mosley or talked to him at all?
I've definitely known him. I probably met him when I was a kid, probably like at early nationals or something, you know, so 98 right after he won the gold. And then like Tanner's documentary. I mean, he's like, for how big he is, the fact that he's still like I mean, if you're in freestyle in the 90s, man, like it's such a small, I knew who Tanner was and from Minnesota, and I knew who a 13-year-old was when I was 18 because of how small Moguls is around the country.
Yeah.
You know, so like everyone has like, I don't know, all the guys he got to ski with that squaw. They were, I mean, like, got like, that were my age. Like, he's only 4 years older than me. Yeah. So there's a guy that's 14 that Johnny knows that's on his team that was fucking dominating, like a Tony Basile or something. And these other kids that we'll bring up. But I don't know. It's pretty wicked, man.
Dude,
he was on the cover of like the Heart Skis fucking brochure in 96. I got that in my room growing up.
I think that after we're done with this series, recording these 20 episodes, I think you might go on to do a Mogul podcast. It sounds like you're fired up.
Dude, my dream is, I just love roots, right? I think everyone who started the sport pretty much came from moguls or aerials, mostly moguls. And I was upright aerials, as Tanner was explaining the last show. But like, natural moguls, man, to me is the dopest shit. Because it's everywhere. Like, I'm the same as like how Plake preaches it. It's just like, dude, it's the place on every mountain that doesn't get groomed. If you really can have style going through that shit at high speed and then fucking hitting a mogul and like doing an air and then being like, oh, I'm going to land on the backside of that mogul in that transition. And it's just tranny finding. Whether you're tranny finding in your turns or tranny finding in the airs, I don't like new school moguls. And you know, like the left, no moguls after the second air, like automatic left, right turns. You might as well have fucking gates. That's what we made fun of growing up. Oh, left, right, don't know where to go.
You were upright aerials. What was your best upright aerials trick?
Triple Daffy, man.
Triple Daffy. You talked about that on Giving Flowers. You got that smooth triple Daffy.
Yeah, well, that was the fun shit for a 6'3" person.
You weren't doing the triple backflip, triple tuck?
No one could flip, as we said, you know, like if you rotated over 1080, you were disqualified. I think it was even a 1080 was disqualified. It was over 720 because there was no degree of difficulty. You couldn't go off axis. You couldn't grab your skis. You didn't bend your knees. You know, like everything was so perfectly like robotic.
Upright.
Like even on 720, it was like you looked like a perfect pencil. And that was the whole thing. Like if the dopest guy was doing like 360 spread eagle 360. Now the dopest trick ever done in the history of upright aerials was Tom Dunn in 1994 at the Utah Winter Sports Park. And he did a 180 triple Daffy 180 landed at the bottom. Ain't no one like I've seen kids now stop rotations and start to go back. But I'm just like, after I saw that, I believe anything can happen. The fact he could stop 180 and travel so far, look uphill, and then start your rotation again. I'm like, yo, why wasn't he thinking about rotating back the same way he came? But people didn't even spin to the other side, right? So your unnatural side to spin was called the dark side. Because no one fucking did it. Oh, you're a dark side spinner? So they got one guy out of a million that spun to the right. You'd call him a dark side spinner because no one else spun to the dark side.
Oh my God. That was just a completely different world.
It was, dude. That's why it's so ill, like, because you had to create so much, right? Now there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
Now it's like what happens is the opportunity is going to get suppressed again, right? With all these events and stuff, but they still have more. Think about like Jonny Moseley went from a free pair of skis to life-changing shit. Tanner Hall, when he won his X Games, like making a little bit, but life-changing shit. Josh Christensen wins the first Olympic gold. I don't know if it was super life-changing. When you're sweeping beside two Americans, maybe, hopefully we'll find out on our show one day.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't think it had the level that changed the sport at all, that changed his whole lifestyle at all. And so it's very interesting to see these ceilings come back on top of people, but they're still getting fed some breadcrumbs. So everyone just says, well, you know, we should be thankful I got $5,000. Okay, let's just do it and not be happy.
Word. Let's get Moseley in here. Did you already send him the link?
Johnny Big Air. Let's see. Let's send him the link. I think I hold this button, that button, I copy.
Apparently, Mount Hood's getting 11 to 17 inches of snow today, Iberg. It is May 22nd. Mountain's closed for the day. Everyone's doing a down day today. So this interview worked perfect. Perfect in the schedule.
7 inches, May 22nd, right?
No, not 7. 11 to 17.
Oh, what?
Yeah, we're getting a foot of snow right now.
A lot of snow. All right. His invitation has been sent.
Beautiful. Oh, and you got the 40.
I did. I almost didn't. I just had to run last minute. I go, this is once in a lifetime, Eric. Like, I'll talk to him today more than I've ever talked to him in one sitting.
Nice. I got the Polar Pure again, man. When you're camping, you do too much drinking at night. I can't be drinking around the clock.
I don't either. I figured like when I was driving back and thinking I was an alcoholic in the middle of the day, I was like, okay, we got 20 shows this season. I'm like, not all of them are going to be daytime, but even if I did, so maybe 12 to 15 will be in the daytime. And if I only drink 12 to 15 times in my life in the daytime, and it's for an awesome work job, I've told myself I'm not an alcoholic.
There you go.
Because I'm not drinking unless we on the show, you know?
Of course. Also, I'm pretty sure those 40s are a business expense since you're drinking them on the show.
I think you have to be a business to have a business expense. No, for that level.
But here we go. Here we go. Stand by.
I hope he's on a boat. Yacht.
It's not a boat. It's a yacht. Connected to audio. Oh, we're getting there.
Man, you're ready to call the event. Your whole setup is wicked.
Yeah, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in.
Yeah, I've got the full podcaster setup here.
Are you a podcaster yourself?
No, I was there's a local radio show around here called Sarah and Vinny Show. I'm in Tiburon, California, just north of San Francisco, across the bay. But I go on this morning show a bunch for Alice Radio. It's been around for a long time, and so then the guy I filled in as a co-host for a while some of the hosts were off doing other stuff or going to rehab, what have you, and then we started doing a podcast together in COVID. So they set me up with this home setup. I like your ski wall looks good. I see the Candide back there. You get a winter heat.
I bought that at a DI in Salt Lake City in 1998 in the spring because of you. Because I was like, what? You won the gold on that winter heat shit? And then I was like, what? And then you had the pro model. So I thought that was the other ski. So do you even own this ski? That's the original 1960s version.
I don't. The only version I have is right there. I've got the actual skis that. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Well, and then I've got the hot dog movie poster on it, but that's what I got. I don't have the old school ones, so hold on to those for me. The real originals.
If you would like them, I've held on to them for 26 years, and I can send them out your way because I have no purpose. I just pretty much these are all pro models these guys skied on. So it's like pro model, and that's Henrik's first ever pro model. Phil Bellinger, Candides, and they all skied on and broke them. And then I would collect them after they'd ski them and break them in the twin tip generation.
You're hardcore. I love it.
I love this shit, man. So, I'm going to let Ethan start a little.
Yeah, let's start.
All right, yeah. Sorry, Ethan. You go.
Overwhelm him today with my stokedness because Ethan doesn't know almost anything about you. So I'm going to let him kind of take the beginning, and then I'll just become nuts.
Yeah.
All right.
So we've already been recording, so I'll just chop in. If there's any beautiful bits in that, which I think there were, we'll keep it. But Johnny, thank you for being here, man. This is an honor to talk to you.
Thanks, man. Stoked to be here as well. It's always more fun to talk to people who really know are passionate about skiing, you know.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little story to get started. And Iberg, you know part of the story, but you don't know the whole story. So as he said, I'm the new head on the show. I was born in 98, and that's when you were at the Olympics. So I came into the world as you're already doing your thing. And so when I was younger, my parents split up. In my mom's house, we would always move around. And it's the first time I had my own room, and I hated sleeping in my room in the dark alone. So I would always put on movies at night. And for Christmas one year, I got Warren Miller's Wintervention. So you might be able to see where this is going. I would watch that movie every night to go to bed, and you were the narrator. So for my entire life, it was Jonny Moseley, the movie narrator, and that's all I knew. And then I told Iberg that, and he loved it because that's the young generation's view of it. And then he started telling me all the history, sending me documentaries, talking about video games, talking about David Letterman, talking about SNL. So that's how I knew you. I'm excited to learn more. I've learned a little bit more through my research, but yeah, you were the voice of my going to sleep routine for many years.
That's cool. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I'm sorry, and yes, that's great to hear.
But how nuts is that, Johnny? Like, if you think about it, in your career, and that's why I'm so passionate to have you on here, because your legacy is what you did on fucking skis that no one else has ever done. And then, but you have this legacy because you're Warren Miller, 50 years plus, right? Like, that's what, I mean, Ethan's 26 years old, and he's been doing podcasts for a couple of years. So it's pretty much all this generation that's younger than 26 that follows him and listens to his other podcasts that he does. So we're using his platform for this. But I just thought it was really interesting because imagine you're a voice in his memory growing up because he loves skiing, but he never knows what that voice did. You know, and what that voice did is pretty fucking awesome, man. You even got that job because of what you did on skis.
Yeah, no, I mean, you bring up an interesting point where, in my mind, you know, I go way back to this like early days of skiing and you know, what I did in my sort of prime years as a skier. And then obviously all the stuff I did subsequently for whatever reason, all these opportunities that presented themselves and I kept going on to just seemed like, you know, sort of, amazing, you know, things for me to be a part of, like the Warren Miller film. Obviously, I never even dreamed. I always wanted to be in a film. That was incredible when I got that opportunity after I won the Olympics, or I guess before I won the Olympics, but in earnest after. And then, you know, then to be asked to narrate the film was kind of ridiculous, right? Like all that stuff. And, you know, things just kept opening up for me. But sometimes I forget, that some people are just entering into that sphere at certain points, you know, like they don't know anything about me for that. How you get exposed to someone for the first time is typically how you remember them. And so it is kind of cool to sort of, I guess, have this discussion and, you know, like with someone like Ethan, who was inserted at this certain point and see what goes from there. So yeah, no, it's interesting to me, and it's all to just think about the whole now that so much time has passed. I mean, in my mind, it's still so short and right there that I never like take the time to kind of like think of it in terms of how it, you know, sits in the grand scheme of things.
Man. You go up to Tahoe last month, and you're probably skiing with all the people you still skied with 30 years ago. You know what I mean? They just might have a family. You see people, you go to a place, everything's familiar. So you haven't had really, even though you've like grown as a person, when you're in that bubble of Squaw Valley, it's almost timeless, man. Like Squirrel was still cool like 30 years later. You know what I mean? For being Squirrel. Like it's crazy there. And he wasn't even like an Olympic gold medalist, just a movie gold.
Yeah, were you up there for the reunion thing when Dan Hervey showed up?
No, I lived there when I made my first movie. Like I moved out there and made my thing in E-Media. So the same as Daphne did with Steve Mitchell.
Yeah,
so out there in like 2000, 2001, 2002, like when I worked with the Phils and shit, and I actually will get into that fun stuff in Phoenix World.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was blown away on like the culture. I never like lived there, but everything was about like so much pride in who so-and-so was in the community. And you had a pedestal, you know, everyone had a unique pedestal in that community. I don't know. I think it's crazy. Like I was watching your something you talk about McConkey, and you're like, yeah, growing up, you just know who McConkey is. I'm like, that's so crazy. You both come from the same hill, you know, and you're only 2 of 100 of awesomeness. I mean, Darren Rawls, I think, came from there. Like, there's a pretty decent list you probably could go on. So that's probably why you feel like it was yesterday, because you probably did a ballet trick last month.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah, no, I mean, and the Dan Hervey thing is kind of interesting because Squirrel, who Dan Hervey did the ski stunts for in Hot Dog, was.
Have you seen the movie Hot Dog?
No, I've heard about it many times. I've not seen
Squirrel's
it.
a dude who gets a blowjob on a gondola in Squaw Valley in the early '80s, and it's a freestyle movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you gotta watch Hot Dog. And it was significant because it was sort of the early days of, it wasn't even, it was sort of the heyday. I would say it was the peak of freestyle skiing, and it's sort of, before it became an Olympic sport and everything. And so all the guys who were current freestyle stars, call them kind of pros at that time, they were competing on the whatever circuits were around, kind of a quasi World Cup. But they would all come back to Squaw, and they all came back there to film that movie. And that coincided with the first freestyle team that was ever formed. And so a lot of the guys that were in that movie, like Dan Hervey, who played Squirrel, were our coaches. So like the first time I joined the freestyle team in '85, Dan Hervey was like one of my first coaches. So it's just, you're right. It's Squaw's kind of this like circular, Palisades, is one of these places that just keeps like circulating. And then they filmed that. It reminded me when they filmed that Weak Layers film their year, it was a very similar situation where you had all these like current pros out there doing all the stunts, and those kids were also sort of mixed in with the younger kids that are competing now. And so you'll see this kind of like result of that 20 years later, where these sort of pros will be passing on their influence to the next generation. And then, obviously, it's endless. McConkey and Rolfs and all those guys that came out of there. JT. Yeah, you can just go on and on.
So, yeah, we're tangenting like a motherfucker too early.
I have a way to start this. I have an idea for a way to start this to help my demographic understand what was going on. Because Johnny, you've been described as like a catalyst, a bridge between kind of bringing in the new generation of skiing. So if you could, for us, could you lay the groundwork a little bit for the ski world that you entered when you were first starting, kind of the world of moguls and aerials and hot dogging, and who you would have looked up to at the time, just to help people that are 26 understand what the ski world was and then what it eventually turned into?
Yeah. I guess I'll try to make it short, or at least like digestible. I without going like deep into my past or whatever, but so it was, I had started skiing in Palisades at age 3 or something like that. I had two older brothers that were 5 and 6 years older than me, and we all kind of started at the same time.
What year is this, Johnny?
That was 1980. Probably like, actually more like 1979 or something like that. 78, 79. I was born in Puerto Rico, and I moved back in 75, and we all moved back here to the Bay Area when I was 2. So, and my dad loved skiing, and so we started skiing all the time up there. Anyway, at the time, we went into the race programs, which was Mighty Mites and kind of your typical path, weekend skiers. And then it was around 85 when my older brother, who was big into skating and surfing, was like, what's this freestyle stuff? And that also coincided with when Hot Dog the movie came out. And so they were just my
Rick,
brother,
right?
Rick and Jeff. Yeah.
So Rick is a legend in freestyle as well. I believe Rick was on the U.S. team, correct?
Nice, Eric. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. He was.
Let's give older brother some props, man, before you caught up.
Absolutely. So those guys basically saw freestyle skiing and were like, that's what we want to do. And so we had entered like a dual mogul contest. They used to just have contests all the time, like on the weekends, like people would just sign up for like open events, mogul contests. It would be like red flag, blue flag. then there was a circuit. But so I guess what you're and I guess the landscape was this: 85. Has a World Cup circuit that's very traditional, moguls, aerials, and ballet skiing. Your typical world champion, World Cup leader, the person who was the most famous in that arena, did all three events, moguls, aerials, and ballet. They were just starting to specialize, doing only one event. Snowboarding was not really happening yet. It really had not started happening at that point, at least in Tahoe. And so we joined the freestyle team and stopped the racing. And at that point, what that consisted of was day one, I think, was doing ballet skiing. So like, short skis, long poles, learning how to spin and jump off the ground, do flips over the poles. Then in the afternoon, we'd go, they had an air site, like an upright air site. So you'd have 3 jumps built. They were what you would call step downs now, right? Like it was not a tabletop. Basically, it's like a just ascending jump onto like over a knoll, and then you land on a steep landing. And you'd be practicing twisters and spreads, daffies, and it would be about your form. And then you'd add a daffy twister, a lot of then you'd learn the 360s. No grabs or anything like that. Maybe you work up to a 720, no landing backwards. That was the kind of the landscape. And then 88.
Quick question on 85 for me. There was a Pro Mogul tour in the mid 80s, correct?
Yeah, so there was a Pro Mogul tour happening at the same time. Yeah,
Can you
and a World Cup tour.
Answer me why a skier, because coming from Minnesota, I learned about it later. I heard about people that did it in the early 90s, late 80s. But why would you be doing it? I mean, the first time I heard about it as a kid was because Brad Holmes moved over to the Bud Pro Mogul Tour, and not Ricky Carmichael, not Nelson, who is the dude who dominated Cameron Boyle.
Boyle, yeah.
I never understood the difference between a pro scene and the World Cup scene in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to bring up because at the time, I think the pro scene, well, in general, but just to be frank, at that time, the pros were basically the guys who couldn't make the World Cup. Okay, and then they got spit out of the World Cup, or they were never in the whole like pipeline, so they were.
There was enough people out there to participate.
But the kind of because people could just sign up. It was an open format, and so but the tension sort of started to build because guys like Scott Koff and Cameron Boyle were competing all the time and winning these pro events, and they were kind of becoming more well known than the guys out there competing on the World Cup, like the Steve Desoviches of the world. So, but within the freestyle world, they were always seen as kind of like inferior skill wise, if you put it that way, right? But that was just kind of like the way it was. But on the other hand, they were out there making money and all that stuff, but they really didn't have. And there would be a couple that would, try to eke onto the World Cup and maybe slide back and forth. So there was a little bit of that. But that was the way I understood it.
You saw someone that went and competed pro and came back. Because here's where I'll get in the future. Because with the Olympics, you always had to have amateur status. And before the Dream Team in 92, we never really saw it again especially in winter sport until 2002, right? Because even in 98, I don't think any of the snowboarders, were doing X Games necessarily, like Ross or whoever. So could you move around from pro and amateur in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah, so that's a bit of like a myth. As far as I get it, as far as I understood, there really was no that pro amateur line or restriction had never really been in existence in freestyle skiing.
It's just me hearing that.
Yeah, I think in the 80s they brought in what they called the U.S. ski team pool, so you could get paid as a skier, but you could only get paid by companies that were in the ski team pool. So the ski team would charge these. If you wanted to sponsor an athlete that was on the U.S. freestyle team, you had to pay the ski team first a fee. Then you could go make a deal with one of the athletes. And so, of course, it was
Marty Odlin Armada skis in 2002 because we didn't sponsor the U.S. team. And then Paulie Joe Clark put us on suspension so he could ski them for 1 year. And then if we liked it, then we were allowed to give him lots of money. And then we're like, man, this is the worst deal ever for you, Marty.
There you go.
Money next year. So
yeah, it was a chapper. It was not, because you then weren't allowed to negotiate with companies outside the pool, which obviously restricted your thing. But Ethan, what were you trying to get at?
Skiing in the mid 80s.
Yeah, and I think
skiing in the mid 80s. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So this is why I want to lay the groundwork, because my first real ski event memory that I could for sure say I remember watching on TV was when Henrik did the nose butter triple to win X Games Big Air. And Iberg, the year on that, 2013 maybe? Yeah, all right, 2013. So that's the world I came up in, and that's the world that a lot of these 20-year-olds came up in, 20-somethings came up in. So I feel like it's important to set the groundwork for why a 360 mute was so game-changing when the world we came up in, Henrik's doing nose butter triples, So I think just getting that base understanding for why your 98 performance was so big compared to what we're doing, basically 30 years later. So that's just kind of why I'm trying to help everyone understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in the 80s, you couldn't, when you were talking about all those fun things you were doing, 360 twister to Davies, you couldn't go just do a backflip for fun.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, there's so much to cover here, so I'm getting the wheels going here. But the other thing to remember when I'm setting the groundwork for this, 85 or 88 year, is that's at a regional level with what I'm doing at a very local micro level. But on the World Cup, what's happening broadly at the pro level is inverted aerials, right? So everybody's doing on the World Cup tour, they're doing triple twisting, triple backflips, which I don't know. I've done the math on that before, but it's a 3 flips, 3 twists. So however you want to put it in triple terms and corked and all that stuff.
Triple 1080.
But they're doing a lot. But they're doing a lot of flips and spins. The first quad had been done at that point. So 4 flips, 3 twists by Frank Bear out in the backcountry. So that type of stuff was happening, but it was very confined, right? It was confined to an aerial hill, and obviously that goes back to the wild days of the early freestyle movement when the ski resorts kicked them out because people were getting hurt. Because they were jumping off stuff, and that's when FIS came in and took over and organized it under these sort of very distinct disciplines. And that's why we were never allowed to flip at mountains. That's why you couldn't flip when you were a youth. You couldn't flip in regional contests. You couldn't flip in
under
junior
18,
nationals.
You couldn't even flip in a contest because you weren't allowed to get certified.
Exactly. So that's where that all came in. Just you could start. At that time, starting probably when I was 11 and 88, I was starting to go get certified. You could get certified under 18 for sure.
So you could go compete at a NORAM level, a back lay, and a back tuck.
Absolutely. I did my first NORAMs. I did when I was 14 and 15, and I was doing back full layout. And then by the time I was 16, I was doing doubles, lay tuck, lay full. So you did, but you had to get.
You couldn't compete at triple, correct, until you're 18? Because I remember Joe Pack got disqualified in 96 when he was 17 at a junior nationals because he did late tuck full. And it was
You might be right about that. That might have been a thing. You're right. Yeah, I think that's right. That makes sense. Certainly didn't do my first triple until I was 18. So yeah, that could be.
And that was the highlight as a 16-year-old kid, to know a kid that was the best there said, I don't even need to get on the podium because everyone knows I'm the best. And he still had his team spot the next year because then he'd think he was 18 the next year.
Yeah. Freaking Joe Pack, legend. I didn't know that story.
On too, Johnny, why I'm setting up this time so much is I think shit works in cycles, right? I think when you were part of the foundation of this era, it was almost like a revolution of hot dogging. You know, I remember my freestyle coaches being like, this won't last. You guys will get injured, break your necks, then you'll get kicked out of the mountains again. And I remember I was like, no, I already heard this with my parents with rap music saying it was going to be a fad 10 years ago. Shit's not a fad. We're here forever. And so that was about 30 years after hot dogging, right? Late 90s. So I honestly believe there's another revolution coming up in freestyle because I see all these youth that are doing their own thing. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast too. And so I find it really interesting when you line up the years. I line up 1968 a lot and 1998 in hot dogging and freestyle. And I watch all the same projections when it became organized with fists, when it became an Olympic sport, 88 and 2014. And so I've written a whole documentary on it, right? Like with these whole things. So I'm interested to kind of see too what sets up when you kind of say, oh man, the Olympics are so awesome, but then you realize it puts a ceiling on you because you are the perfect example of they gave a ceiling, said this is the most you can do. You worked extra hard to break that ceiling and whatever. So I don't know, that's why I think the late 80s is so interesting, especially where we've been at in twin tip skiing in the last 10 years now. So.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's these sort of like eras that there's these changes. And I can also, I'm, trying to noodle on Ethan's question of how do you, if you just were exposed to, to Henrik's nose butter triple in 2013, then you look back and you're like, what the hell were these guys doing before that? Why were they, what on earth were they doing? And I think, you kind of, I would say that obviously this is belabored, but yeah, there was obviously a restriction. The restrictions, the snowboarding really lifted all the restrictions, right? And, you really have to look at the beginning of the terrain park as sort of, down in Mammoth or not Mammoth, but was that Big Bear down there, Mountain High or something like that?
Yeah. All of them.
When they first started,
Flaw had it, in 96, when we get to that point, like you got shots with Gaffney in 96 in the pipe with your team shit on.
Yeah. That was, exactly. There's so many little insertion points there where it started to happen. But I think if you're looking at it from like a macro level, the whole idea of being able to just go innovate on a jump, started back with the snowboarders. And so there was this kind of like, for me personally, even though, I was in this sort of rigid zone of aerials, moguls, ballet, on the freestyle, tour, I was always like, had my eye peeled on snowboarding because that's like what all my friends were doing. Frankly, skiing just wasn't cool when I was in high school in the early 90s. It was just like I was the only guy I knew that actually skied. So, everybody snowboarded. So I was always kind of looking at that as like, what's going on here? And then
you guys had icons at that time, right? In snowboarding in Tahoe?
Huh?
Like
what?
You had huge icons in snowboarding.
Yeah. In Tahoe?
The Palmers, in the Tahoe, it was pretty wild.
Yeah. So you brought, you're bringing up some. If you go local, this is actually this will mend the whole thing. This will put it together. Donner Ski Ranch, we used to compete all the time. Okay, that's this little hill on top of Donner Pass, and they were into freestyle. They were the first mountain really that had a hand dug half pipe, and we would have mogul contests there, and they'd have an upright aerial site. And I remember Damian Sanders, who was and Avalanche Snowboards. Okay, they were there. They would rent snowboards there, and so after we would compete, we would go down and put these in our Solomon rear entries. We'd snowboard on these Avalanche snowboards, and Damian Sanders would be around, and Sean Palmer and Brad Holmes. Palmer used to compete in moguls, and then he'd go put on a snowboard and go rip around, and Holmes would be right there with him in his motocross pants. And that was where the seed was set. At least in my mind, I was looking at these guys holy crap, that's really cool.
And these guys are all punk rock guys, Ethan. If you Google these names,
they're super punk. Yeah.
Brad Holmes, Sean Palmer, Sean Palmer, excuse me.
And Farmer. Farmer's a little bit later, but Farmer was in that.
I didn't even know Palmer skied moguls, though. But Palmer, for example, man, he was a legend in snowboarding, then put on skis in the late 90s, 2000s, won in ski cross at X Games. He's I'm going to quit because this shit's too fucking easy. Tanner told the story about how people used to be characters last week. Yeah. These people were above reality even before they were famous because they were so confident, so out there, looked different.
Yeah.
They were special.
I got another question. So before snowboarding, Johnny, were you guys grabbing your skis?
No, absolutely not, dude. That's kind of what I was trying to get you into, is that even though I had this sort of notion, especially through my brothers and Holmes was my idol. I love Brad Holmes, and he was just an amazing skier, super young guy, made it on the World Cup, but totally in the sort of that punk skate scene with Palmer and those guys. So that was the influence that was around me, but none of us thought of doing any of that stuff, grabbing our skis. It really wasn't until JP and JF and Vincent. I mean, there's obviously some argument that Andrew Shepard guy they always bring up did the first grab off some cliff. The big mountain riders like Kreitler and all those guys will claim
but I'll say this, Johnny,
they did it or whatever.
And here's what I'm going to interact with you because I know you know the USSA rule book. Do you know the trick of Leroy?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
We
called it 92 a Leroy grab. We did Zutnik grabs and Leroy grabs. So over my life. Everyone was grabbing, and then I had friends that called a 360 safety grab a UFO because that's what it was called in rollerblading. An upright aerial. So they're I'm doing UFOs tonight. So I've learned it comes from everywhere. And I always hear you give JP Auclair, JF Cousin, and Vinny Dorian a lot of props every interview, man. So something like that I think is really awesome that you convey. But
are you saying that before those guys I did. You guys were grabbing.
We called it Zutnik grab, where our tips grab both insides and then look through and smile at our friends.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I guess I do remember the Zutnik grab off the side.
They were called Rocket Air in Tahoe by skiers because you had a couple guys that did Rocket Air. The LBZ guy that bleached his fucking hair wore always motocross gear. He was fucking hilarious. Always was permatan.
Yeah, but that was well after JP. Are you talking about Shane Anderson?
No. I'm talking. There was another guy a little bit before him, but I'm saying he was in the '96 era. But yes, I'm saying 100% before '96. I can go in so many regions of the world.
You're talking about upright aerial, you were doing upright. You tell me, you were doing upright air. What was your freestyle? Where did you compete in the upright aerial?
Yeah, I was a triple daffy guy in upright aerial. Tom Dunn was my icon and idol. You might remember him from '94 upright aerials, 180 triple daffy 180.
That's just, that I do remember that guy actually. At Winter Park, he did that. I remember
that was at
That was sick.
In 94 for nationals.
Yeah, that's the thing is that's true. I just don't remember it being something that I guess I think of them in a different way, right? Like I remember there was like the grabbing of like maybe the Zootnik grab, but I guess that's before. Yeah.
I just wanted to say from this side, because it's so fun to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Because from your side, that's how you were snowboarding and the new Canadian Air Force, So it's just
yeah.
fun.
I mean, I pretty much picked it up from those guys. I don't remember seeing it before that. I mean, as like in that way.
And is this something you're witnessing with your eyes, or are you watching videos of these guys? Like, how are you seeing the new Canadian Air Force inspiring you?
That's a good question. So it's hard for me to like distinguish between what I was seeing in person and what I was seeing on film. The way I kind of recollect this all going down was, I think I remember Evan Divbig, who was like a mogul skier from the East Coast. I remember him saying to me something of the fact, like, we were at a training camp and he was like, dude, have you seen that those guys are doing like, or these guys have done a misty on skis? And because I believe, I don't even know if they were calling it a misty, because snowboards had a misty, right? Did they have a misty?
Anyway, called it the mystery flip when you guys first started doing it, but everyone else called it a misty flip around the world.
Okay. So I remember that, and I remember going, Evan, that's impossible, because I was like an aerialist. I was doing triple twisting, triple backflips, and basically he was saying they were doing a snowboard style flip, on skis, and I was like, the physics don't line up, And then, honestly, I have no idea where I first saw the mute grab. I mean, it must have been, I must have seen some video from the boys, I can't remember.
97 world NORAMs. So Vinny was the illest, right? Because Vinny skied on 185s, and he's like 4'10", and he's skied fucking Dynastar assaults.
Yeah.
Remember how quick the transition was into the fucking mogul jumps at this time?
Yeah.
Homeboy would preload pressure, so he would hop into transition to springboard his skis.
Yeah.
This was the first I saw a video of this NORAM somewhere in Quebec in 97 as a kid.
Yeah.
And, like, he maybe went 5 feet higher than everyone else because of the ski he chose and how he fucking did transitions into the kicker.
Yeah, so Vinny was sick.
That was the first time I ever saw it.
But that's later, dude. I'm talking about it. Those guys were. It was 95, because when I went back and did that segment for Scott when I was scooting around in the park, he just happened to be up there. Or no, he actually called me. I just got back from the World Cup in 96, and he was like, "You want to go film?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah." We went out, and that's when I did the 1080 mute and all that stuff.
That's 97. I fact checked that, where you do the 1080 mute, because that's in his movie Breathe. He did Walls of Freedom the year before in 96. 96, right. He got some pipe shots. And the reason why I can tell is because 96, they got those whack ass, like, not the skulls, it's the Fab Elise outfit. So I go all off the team outfits. And then 97 or 98 is when it's the solid red pants with silver. Yeah. And so I can match it up properly. And even though you labeled it 96 Breathe on your YouTube, you are incorrect. It was 1997. And he even says on the intro of the segment that you posted.
Well, it could have been
when all that super shit went down. Because 96 was beyond special. That was the year that you filmed with Greg Stump for Fistful of Moguls and Steamboat. And you were still doing back scratcher Cossack in 96 with some skull pants on.
Yeah, I think the only piece you're missing there. So are you saying? I think the piece you're missing, the only. So let's just back it up. So spring of 97 was the year
Johnny put out a movie called State
so
of
it could
Mind
be.
that year.
So you're saying it could be spring of? You're saying that was spring of '97
Yeah.
is when I shot.
Well, the
with,
Mogul stuff, they
with
were doing it
Breathe.
in the NORAMs in 96.
Uh-huh.
There was also a pro event in 96 in Sunday River where they built the pro style step down jumps and the Moguls. Do you ever do those?
I've done them, but not there. I wasn't there. I know what you're
96,
talking about.
Tucson did a rodeo in the fucking pro mogul event. I burned
That's
out
sick.
the VHS tape watching this shit.
Wow. That's
So
cool.
96, I would say, was the beyond innovative year for those guys in the NORAM scene.
Yeah.
And in 97, Johnny met up with them all for the first time. Because 96, he filmed a thing called like Fade to Black, which was mostly moguls. It was still all twisters. And then the next year, took a year off and then did State of Mind.
Johnny, I'm sure you've already noticed Iberg is obsessed with ski history. So
Yeah.
But you're probably the only one that remembers the most dates of all my friends. I have a tough time with those nowadays.
Yeah. No, I remember in my mind, I think about the World Cup seasons. And, so I was trying to think of what I was doing in the spring of 97.
Spring of 96, you were doing ultimate bumps and jumps at Heavenly, wearing a bib one piece with orange neon Fabulous pants, doing full, and also fucking podiuming and moguls. I got the VHS.
Okay. Cool. Sounds
you were making
good.
money, dog, in the spring of 96 after you fucking won your most World Cups ever of fucking 8 World Cups in one season.
Yeah, that was that year. Yeah.
I'm gonna get us back on track. So you're watching snowboarders, you're watching the Canadians, you're getting stoked up, you're seeing for the first time, you're a kid coming up in the 80s and early 90s, and you're seeing there's a new world on the horizon. I want to hear about like just embracing that newness and that why you thought you needed to bring it into the moguls and start grabbing your skis. Something.
And could you bring
unseen.
it into the mogul?
Oh yeah, and what resistance you faced, if any.
Yeah. So I mean, I didn't. I mean it was. I'm trying to think. Like to me, it was a no-brainer to want to do that, to want to do a grab or something cool in the moguls like that. And so I had been, thinking about it. I'm trying to think. I mean, the first time I think I did it, because you gotta remember, there's like still this pro thing going on, and Shane Zox is out there doing it in the pro events, and then we're all trying to qualify for the mogul for the World Cup. And so, I mean, even though we could do it in the moguls and we were constantly doing it in practice, it was like the year of the Olympics. So it was you had to win a World Cup event to even get to the Olympics. So, you're kind of like
Shane Zox was doing 360 mutes in the bumps and jumps tour.
I mean, I think so. All those guys, because they weren't going to go to the Olympics, so they went off and were doing that. I guess it was bumps and jumps. Yeah.
And my next quick question was, I remember people talking about it being a break in form when you would grab your skis in mogul judging locally at 97, after you did it. All judges had to talk around the country. I was at the national meeting and everyone was like talking what break in form was when you grabbed your ski. So I'm curious, like how they bring a new trick that doesn't have a degree of difficulty in a book.
Okay. Yeah. So this I can try to cover quickly. The first time I did it in a mogul contest was after I secured my spot to the Olympics to 98. So I came out, I got second in the first contest with just an iron cross. I went to the next contest. I won that in La Plagne with just an iron cross. JF did a 360 mute in that contest, but because he was still trying to qualify. And then after I secured my spot, we had a World Cup back at Breckenridge. And that was about 2-3 weeks before the Olympics. And that's when I busted it out for the first time. That was also the same exact weekend that JP, JF, and Vincent realized they weren't going to make the Olympics. And so they went and did the first U.S. Open in Vail. And that was that kind of famous shots with JP with the check and the 360 mute grab. Same weekend was when I did the first time I did a 360 mute grab in the Moguls, and I won that contest. And that was like 2 weeks before the Olympics. So, but at that time, I never went and told them what we were doing. There was no degree of difficulty in the books for doing a 360 mute grab. This was just like I was doing it, and I didn't know what they were going to do with it. But they obviously liked it, and they gave me the win. Now, there could have been some discussion after that. I'm sure they started to have this discussion between then, but I think they just scored it as an Iron Cross 360. There were no additional points for grabs. There was no discussion with the judges, contrary to like what happened in 02, right? In 02, and this is obviously a whole section we haven't even covered, but in 02, when I wanted to do the dinner roll, which was really, we can get into that, which you probably heard me explain. Originally it was a flat spin 7, and I will go to the sire of the history buff Eric to confirm this, but the trick, the only trick I will claim that I feel like I did first is the dinner roll, really a flat spin 7. I think I did it mute grab and Japan grab, but that's not what I ended up doing in the Olympics in 02. I submitted it as the dinner roll, as the flat spin 7, and that's what I thought I was going to do. And that, because that was close to inverted, that thing I had to submit to the FIS and try to get it approved and get a degree of difficulty assigned to it and all that shit, which we can go into.
The trick he'd had to do, Ethan.
Yeah. So
originally the dinner roll is almost like, you know what a Lincoln loop is?
Yeah.
So it's almost like this, and then after one, you'd go into a 360. And he would do a little less Lincoln loop, whatever, but his head
there's no loop in it. Do you know what a toilet bowl on a trampoline is?
No.
You don't know what a toilet bowl is? No. It's when you go straight up, you land perfectly flat on your back.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what a tabletop on a trampoline is?
No, I've never been really into tramping. Yeah.
That's when you land flat on your stomach and then you do a full flat 360 with your chest never stays parallel to the mat. And a toilet bowl is the opposite. You land flat on your back and you do a perfect 360, but it's really hard. You got to
a flat 360.
It's a flat, fully flat. Exactly. Sorry. So to me, a Lincoln loop is different. But anyway, go ahead.
But so I was just saying, that's how they viewed it, because your head was below on your original. If we watched your U.S. Open shit in 2000, your head is below your feet, and that's what you had to modify and learn on a smaller takeoff to bring your head up to make. Like, it was wild because I don't know, like to change from, it's different hitting a big jump to a mogul kicker, and then like all of a sudden to change the body position that he had to learn, because it sets you a lot nicer to go on your back for the quick transition in the moguls, and then he had to bring it more forward. I don't know, it was wild to watch you do and have to remodify a trick from something you invented. But it was all
I couldn't land it when I was trying to do it in the moguls. After I got it sort of approved, I was down in Chile and I was trying to do it in like on a little short transition and a mogul kicker where you have to land and the way I would set the rotation was I would basically be on a right-footed turn, sort of carving up the jump, and then I would hurl, just like that's what I modeled it after a rodeo on snowboarding. That's what I thought was the coolest trick in all of sports, was the rodeo snowboarding. I just thought it was like this magic trick where the board was edging one way on the ramp and your body was hurling the other. And so it would set me into that flat toilet bowl position, and then the weight of my boots and skis would pull me down for the second 3. And the problem is, when I would straighten out like that and I try to land on the moguls, I was on like at that time, I think I was on 185, maybe and stiff skis, and I would freaking bend those things like a GS ski, like straight up like that. I'd be like, ah! And then they would just spit me out, and I'd knock myself out so many times that I eventually I had to abandon it, and that's why I ended up doing Cork 7 and not telling anyone, because at that point I had submitted it as a flat spin.
We got to.
I know.
A decade.
I need to jump in because these are two things I'm noticing with this conversation. So first of all, it shows like the back and forth between you guys trying to figure out dates and like, who did what first. It shows how much change was going on during this period of time, because it was just so much change all at once that it's hard to even keep it straight in your minds. And second of all, I see why it's called freestyle skiing now, because the fact that you had to submit tricks to FIS for approval. Anyone doing that today would be like, this is the biggest bullshit I've ever gone through in my entire life. What are you talking about to submit a trick for approval?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm seeing the chaos of the time, the quick change, and why you guys would want to change it at all, because you're dealing with a bunch of crap from a bunch of like ski bureaucrats pretty much.
Way to bring that around. I think that's, what do you think, Iberg? Was that a good
I think he's
a good
right
observation?
On.
He's
and what I want to do now, I think you're fucking killing it. And thanks for stopping me at any time, because I want to go back to like 92 and young Johnny and freestyle. Because I really want to use this show too to show how he was the highest level of a sport. And also not only that, but he was a well-rounded person in the sport, which I believed helped you set up to become what you did in twin tip skiing. So Johnny was a guy who did moguls, aerials, and ballet, inverted aerials. So it was a thing that was dwindling, where originally hot dogging was all these things combined into one, got broken up into 3 different sports, and originally everyone did them all, and then they got specialized, and Johnny was the last generation to really be a combined skier, because it's like Gus Kenworthy might be the most modern day guy that would go do half pipe, big air, and slopestyle at an X Games to relate that. But that would be every weekend of Johnny's career when he was on the World Cup. It was like, okay, let's travel to another country today. Okay, I got 10 minutes to practice each sport. Now I'm going to go fucking dominate. So the reason why I want to say this, because man, I had Martin Sundquist was my coach growing up, right?
Yeah.
And his dream was to be ballet skier. He's getting up on the development team. And I remember he'd go to nationals and he'd always lose to you. And I'd always be like, yo, how do you lose to him? He's a mogul skier and shit. He's like, yeah, he told me it was like his second time skiing ballet this year, and he still beat me. He's so good. And so these stories we'd hear about Johnny, like in our small freestyle world, it was super special. Like where he came from, doing all these things. Like he was doing triple 1080, so full. Have ballet shit that would put him in finals. And then fucking by 96, I think you won every single mogul event that year in 1 year.
I didn't know. No, I didn't win.
It was
every
like
single
8
mogul,
events, I think, World Cups.
Yeah, it was not me. I didn't win.
I guess you were doing combined, so those events were different.
I might have won the combined. Yeah, I might have won all the combined events that year. That's it. But those were that was actually the first year I ever won moguls, was 96.
So just in 96 now. So we have this guy, and you're only 4 years older than me. So you're 20, and like you and Didvig are like my superstars, right? As a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
And so Didvig is like, he's doing 720 and 360 iron cross at nationals, winning that shit when he's 18.
Yeah, he's
and like, so you saw too, right? Where he was at 18, and you guys are like the same age. So to see how fast it was, right? So like, you're the guy who's like on the F-17 cover in 96, still doing combined. And this is what I think is the dopest shit. And this is where I really want to know how your life was, because you're getting hard skis, and I'm dealing with the people in Minnesota that you're getting from. That's who I got my skis, because it's 5 minutes away from my house, like Phil Merrill.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that was his second year with the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm looking at all the freestyle kids. They're either getting a free pair of skis or they're paying discount. So when you're a superstar in 1996 winning World Cups, are you a paid sponsored skier for hard?
Yeah, no, that's interesting stuff to talk about. Yeah, that was the first year I got paid by a ski company was the year I made World Cup, and it was Rosenal, and I got paid. I mean, it might have been $1,200 or something like that. I think
For the whole year.
And then for the whole year. And I think I had a victory schedule. So, if I won this or won that, or if I won a World Cup, so, I might have made a little more money the first year. And then I remember this is kind of a funny story. I remember Jim Moran. Do you remember Jim Moran?
Yeah, America's favorite M&Ms. Mosley Brand.
Yeah. And he had been like, he has an interesting story, right? He came in not through like the kid freestyle team tour. He came in from the, pros, and then he went to nationals. He's a freak. Got like top 6 and made it on the World Cup. But he was kind of used to this whole pro ski thing. He was like, yeah, dude, and I had Hart was interested, and the Rosenal thing. Rosenal was really into Div Big, and it kind of pissed me off. And they were given, and at the time it was warranted. If I look back, I didn't feel that way at the time, but Div Big was the hot shot. He was like doing 7s, and I was like trying to keep up with Div Big, and in the moguls. So I was like, shit, okay. So and Moran's like, so what you do, dude, is you take that offer from Rozzy, and you just double it, and then go tell Hart that's what Rozzy offered you. And so then I went over to Hart and got $2,500 or something. So that was my Hart deal, $2,500, I think. And then and it had a victory schedule and stuff. And then I think that like second year or something, what was that? I got paid that. And then by the third year, I was starting to get paid $20,000 a year. And then
you got $20,000 from Hart.
I think so. Yeah.
Before you went to K2 the next year when you rocked the K2 Japan skis.
Yeah, I think that was probably right. And I'm trying to think if that was after victory schedules. But yeah, I think it must have been after victory schedules. Yeah, I think that's what I remember that number.
One guy.
I know. I remember making that after. It must have been that was after the season. That was the season I think I won, a bunch of World Cups and combines and all that stuff. So I think that was what that number was. Yeah.
So you go dominate with Hart. And then I remember like you went, I think was it 96, 97, or was it Olympic year that you went to K2?
So then I went to how I go to K2. I was up in I think I was with Hart for 2 years. I think it was either the summer of 90, must have been the summer of 96, summer of 96. I was with Glenn Plake, and so this all actually now you're talking. So this is when Plake decided to take an interest in all of us, and he started showing up with Greg Stump and filming in Steamboat, and I became bros with Plake, even though I idolized him. He was my idol because he was also a Tahoe guy, mogul skier. But I never knew him.
Jonny Moseley is the 98 Olympic gold medalist in 96 to every person he met. He gets the claim for 2 years to call it.
He was the man. I mean, it was so cool when he started showing up because I just loved that guy, and he loved moguls. And it was at a time when moguls was kind of dead, and it was like, holy crap, Blake's like into us, and he's coming to hang out with us, and he's bringing Stump, and they want to film us. It was like, dude, this is really cool. And Blake and I were both motorheads and worked on cars, so I ended up spending a lot of time with him. But he was the one who introduced me to the K2 guys. I mean, he put me on K2 is what happened, and helped me negotiate and all that stuff. And obviously he's probably the most savvy sort of ski industry business guy that I know, so he taught me a lot of stuff there. But so I think I went to K2 on summer of 96, I believe. So
I think so too, because over the Hart brochure 95, 96.
Yeah, that sounds right.
With your hair coming out of your fucking headband. Mogul turn.
Yeah.
All for 3 years.
Sounds right.
So
Yeah.
my next question, so you go to K2, I'm guessing they offer you some more money than Hart does?
I think the K2 deal must have. I think my retainer went that. I think that must have been. I think my retainer, because I had won a bunch. I think my retainer went to like 20, and then I ended up making a lot more on victory schedules and all that stuff. I might have got. I think I remember ending up. I remember this because I think I switched to head for like 10 more grand, but I think my retainers was in the 20 to 25, and I was making maybe, at the end of the winning everything after whatever 97, 98, maybe you're up in the 60, something like that. I think that's what I remember.
You had to have been the highest paid mogul skier.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Like
well,
before Olympics.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure some of the Euros. I have no idea what the landscape was, but.
So my next random super fan question would be: it always interests me that K2 had K2 Japan, and I remember when Jim Moran always skied on the Killa B. Still to this day, I post that ski, and I'm like, "Yo, man, K2 made a ski called the Killa B. Dope, Wu-Tang needs this shit."
Yeah,
and then, you had the Mamba, but they weren't American skis. So are you I did, and they're two separate identity companies, but was it just a mogul division? Because I mean, I know Hart had a Hart Japan, which was a separate company, and I've seen it a couple times, but I don't know. I always wondered how you guys got the skis that no one else got or could buy.
Well, there was, K2 really didn't have a mogul ski at that time, if I remember correctly. We were skiing on that first year. I think we were.
Outlaw. Shannon Barkey was on the Outlaw.
No, that shit didn't exist then. You crazy? That was way later. That was. Oh no, that was. Was that Brad Holmes's?
Yes, pro
signature
model.
ski?
Shannon Barkey fucking rocked that shit. Fucking following.
Take it back, Mosley. Take it back.
Shit, man, is that right? I don't know, dude. I think that didn't come out until later, man.
Fall of '97, because I remember or fall of '98 because it's selection event, so it would have been after the Olympics. You got your pro model, and he got his.
Okay, I think I got you there. I think because here's how I remember it. I remember having a garage full of TNCs and all these sort of non-mogul related skis. They were like the extreme skis. They were like what Schmidt and all those guys were on. And so when we were going to Japan a lot because moguls were big in Japan. Those were the only guys. They would pay us to go over there and do little photo shoots. Obviously, we were sponsored first by Phoenix, then by Fablease, which you remember. So we would go over there a lot, and the K2 Japan guys were avid mogul guys, and they had a whole mogul squad. They had mogul skis, and so that's why we grabbed those skis. Plus, they look way cooler, the Killer Bees and all that stuff. So we were trying to get those as much as possible, and they were real mogul skis. They were made like mogul skis, more like. Because at the time it was the Dina Star. We were all trying to get after the John Luke ski, right? So, yeah. And then the year of the Olympics is when they made that winter heat for me, and it was a killer freaking ski, and the race department made it and all that stuff. It was a 190. Get this, dude, a 190. You'll like this, Ethan. I did that 360 mute grab in '98 on a 191.
And how tall are you, Johnny?
5'11".
That's great.
So here's something I just thought about. So you signed maybe summer of '96. They had the Poacher that year, right? Did you ever get a ski that ski? Or did
oh my God! Do you want to hear my Poacher story?
First attempt at a twin tip, and it was only like a 160.
This is you're okay. So this now we're getting into sort of like some Ethan territory. Okay, so your age group. So he's bouncing around a little bit. So 98 we do the Olympics happens. Okay, and it's simultaneously the 1080 guys. We first started seeing the 1080 in La Plagne the fall of '97. That's when we went December '97. We were competing in a World Cup. JP and JF, Mike Wilson, Mike Douglas, and Steve Faring, who was responsible for the 1080 production. were there, and we were in a little backcountry quick kicker behind the mogul course, and JP and those guys were taking photos with the 1080, and I was in on that session. And then we all fast forward. We go Olympics. JP and those guys go start this 1080 revolution. After the Olympics settles down, 98, all that stuff. I go, I party for a couple months, and I realize I want to do X Games. I go back to Whistler, and I start figuring. I've had visualized this dinner roll, and so I really wanted to do it on snow. And I was up there. Johnny's filming, and I go try it on the wind lip the first time. This Flatspin 7, and I crank my shoulder, dude. My shoulder I dislocated my shoulder, and I would just saw it in my mind, but I couldn't. It didn't work out. I over-rotated and just banged myself. So I spent a week in the hotel room, and then I went to the water ramp and figured out the flat spin, the dinner roll, and went up and did it on Camp of Champions jump. Johnny filmed it. That's when I'm in that green soccer jersey, and I nailed it. It was great. And then fast forward, we're getting ready for the 99 X Games, Crested Butte. Okay. And if you look closely, when I was trying to do when I was first trying to do this dinner roll, I used the 1080s because I was like, these freaking poachers. First of all, they wouldn't give them to me because
wasn't it called the Stunt Man when you came out? The Poacher was the 1996 ski that mimicked the El Camino. That was a twin tip. It was foam.
Yeah.
Took it off the market, and then you came back with the one that looked like an Evel Knievel stars and stripes, and that was called whatever I just called it.
The stunt man. That's not quite. Yeah, that's not quite how I remember it. Here, it goes back a little bit earlier. So yes, you're exactly right. I used the 1080s. I don't even know where the hell I got them to first do the flat spin, and then when we got to 99 X Games, they had built. This is what one of the reasons this pissed me off is they had built a new enemy for twin tip to compete with the 1080 because the Poacher was this floppy foam piece of shit.
Oh.
Even though it had come out way before the 1080, like back in the day. Those guys had the Poacher out, but it was just a foam core piece of crap, and no one was doing anything on it.
Kid up my hill broke 200 pair.
Huh? Yeah.
Kid up my hill in Minnesota broke 200 pair.
Wow. Yeah. Exactly. So I tried to use those. So here's the setup. You've probably heard the story. I was getting ready for the X Games in '99 with everyone was there. It was that shitty jump. They didn't have any snow. I was like, I know what I'm going to have to do to win this. I'm going to have to try to do dinner roll 9, but I had never done it. But I'm like, I know I'm going to have to get there because I knew what JF and JP had been working on and all that stuff. And I'm like, so I get the Poachers, and they gave Zox the enemies, the prototypes. They didn't even have top sheets. They were white, but they were stiff. But they gave them to him because I think they were like, Zox is going to win this thing. And I was like, what the fuck? So I'm in these Poachers, and I'm doing my tricks practice, and these things are so flimsy, dude, that every time I land, the freaking tail's just flopping, and that's when I took out the fence twice, which you probably know about, the 2x4 and hurt my back.
That's when you have that bruise and they're taking the stuff out.
Oh, that was nasty. Yeah.
So then I went back and got the I got my Mogul skis, which were those Japanese Mogul skis, the 190s, and that's what I ended up doing the Flatspin 7 on, and that's what I would have freaking been able to do the 9 and beat JF, and I had the skis, but I didn't have the skis, and in my mind, that's what really pissed me off, and that's why I ended up leaving.
Here's my next
K2.
crazy question: since you brought up that that X Games, did you know since JF did that switch 7, right? Mm-hmm. He spun to the right. He didn't spin to the left. Was that even a thought in your head that he spun to the dark side?
What the hell was he doing?
He only did a switch 7.
I had no idea that was his dark side. I'm not even sure I knew which way JF spun naturally anyway. Does he a left spinner?
Yeah, because that's what bugged me out when I saw that in Johnny or in 13. I was just like, he did what? How do you?
Why did he do that? Did he do it on purpose?
I have no idea. I've never got to ask him. And so I was asking like you as a competitor that noticed it, and that was the only reason I thought he should beat you, because it was floppy, right? It was switch to switch, but it was still floppy. And I'm like, whoa, everyone must have said he did a switch, right? A dark side 7.
Wow.
You say in 1999.
You're really inside baseball, Iberg. That's pretty crazy shit.
I am a baseball guy.
Yeah. No, that was my impression, was just that it was the first switch 7. Yeah, he horked it around. It wasn't like pretty, but it was just switch to switch, and that was, landing, obviously taking off switch and landing switch, freaking harder than doing anything straightforward. So I think that was I don't think, I'm not even sure. I mean, the judging panel, I'm not sure would have known that he was going opposite, but certainly that was much respect if that's true. That's crazy.
I'm just saying, I was telling him before the show how we used to call spinning to your right side. Now they say right side, left side in slopestyle. Like we'd say dark side, and it was just something you didn't think of as another trick.
Yeah.
Something like the guy who spun to the right on the team, 1 out of every 10 guys, was the dark side spinner in the Mogul team.
Yeah.
And now you're putting some pieces together for me, because there's a ski shop or snowboard shop in Killington called Dark Side Snowboard Shop.
They might just like Star Wars.
They could just be dorks. Johnny, I got a question for you. This is just a broad question. So you basically did a 360 mute into the history books. Like you have gotten so much mileage off that one trick, and really that one trick winning the Olympics. Do you think anyone's gotten more mileage off a single trick in the history of skiing?
I mean, I don't know. Let's look at some possible examples. I mean, it would be hard for me to imagine that anyone got more mileage off one single trick.
Well, I mean, just in terms of your life,
Streaming Seaman. What's his name? Chris Seaman. Chris Seaman.
Seaman's aunt was my Latin teacher. She got me on that picture of him.
I mean, that's a pretty legendary trick.
I just think from your perspective, how many times you've said the name of that trick in your life since you've done it? Because every time you tell the story, you have to say the name of the trick, and every time someone's talking about you, they say the name of the trick. And
I built a whole business off my whole life off of that trick. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's incredible.
You had the Michael Jordan silhouette of a 360 mute as a trademark.
I milked the shit out of that thing.
It's actually funny that. So we're talking about what happens after you win a gold medal. We talked to Alex Hall, and he's like, my life didn't change at all. He keeps it in his sock drawer, and he forgets that he even has it and never talks about it. So it's just interesting how the prestige of winning a gold medal has changed from 98 to 2022, where it's like a secondary thought to Alex Hall. He's like, oh yeah, I guess I did win that gold medal for America. So it definitely has changed a lot. I don't know if you guys have any theories about why it's changed, but it undeniably has. Like it didn't have the same effect on him as it did on you, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, there's probably a scarcity principle there that sort of was, it was in effect. There's just more events, more gold medals. But I would also point to it as like a sign of sort of a healthy free ski industry, if you will, because those guys, are like, I think the wish, and Eric, you can speak to this. I think that one of the insecurities and one of the hopes of a lot of us at that time was to be like a real pro, like you saw in skateboarding or snowboarding, or where the pros had like a career where they worked with the companies, they did their thing, but it was all sort of one piece. It wasn't like they did the World Cup and then they came back and they tried to do movies. It was all one flowing piece. And, that was what what was kind of built on the heels of this era of the sort of free ride era, was the ability for like an Alex Hall to be like, yeah, the Olympics is just like a basketball player. It's just another stop every 4 years on my path. I've got X Games and I'm doing movies and I've got like 14 events to go to, and so it's like part of my deal. Now, I don't really know what his, if it turned into kind of a, if you look at it financially, if it wasn't as much of a boon, the gold medal. Now you could, but to me, they have a much healthier career, if you will, where I was, if you look at me particularly, I had to basically was competing in one sport that nobody cared about and trying to edge into another sport, free ride, to keep it going while simultaneously trying to get into TV to keep it all going. Where they are just like pros, right? That's what they do. They're pros. And so it's kind of a different deal. As far as the Olympic gold stuff goes, I mean, there was just sort of like when they added slow pipe and, obviously all the snowboards, just that there are quite a few gold medalists out there. So I think that's a difference too,
I got another question for you. Now they're talking about the fun of having a gold medal. And this is just a lighthearted, fun one. What's like the most ridiculous favor or downstream effect of getting your gold medal? Like, have you, been having trouble getting a reservation at a nice restaurant somewhere, and then your buddy's like pulls the guy aside. He's like, "Hey, listen, this guy's got a fucking gold medal for a 360 mute. I mean, come on. Can you think of anything like that? Just because you got all the TV stuff and all the big public things, but I'm sure it creeps into your personal life in some fun ways."
He's got a key to the city of San Francisco. There's a Jonny Moseley Day in the city of San Francisco.
That might be the winner right there.
I mean, we ran that racket every day of the week. Hey, you go up, like one guy goes up to the front of the line and tells them who I am. Then I walk up like, "Oh, hey," like all day long. That was like the racket. Yeah, of course. Like we used to use that thing all day long for all kinds of stuff. No, I mean, it was, I don't know if I could think of one singular story that would sort of sum it up.
A private jet for you to come party with them just for a night?
Private jet just to party for a night.
You're an MTV host for a decade. Like, you have to have the craziest circle of like not mogul skier kind of people around you sometimes. You live. Like, you are who you are. You have to have something that's awesome that you would not tell us, but
yeah, I'll maybe it'll come to me like the most significant one. I mean, I always think of these like when I walk away, but
all right. Well, I'm going to get you there slowly but surely. So we're going back to K2. You're making okay money, and this is what I find interesting too, because it ties in good with how Alex's life did not change at all. And I think knowing all our friends that are in Moguls, Aerials, Ballet, 99% of them weren't making a living at it. Like of all the people, like I didn't know people making a living at it until you got to a certain level. And even them, they're working summer jobs still for sure, even if they had some kind of support. So all of a sudden you go and you do this X Games or this Olympic thing. Because no one's seen it. I mean, my highlight of my life was living in Minnesota, being a senior, watching you live on Letterman, talking to his mom that night, offering him a piece of bread. If you remember this, "Dave, you want a piece of bread, man?"
Yeah.
So I'm getting to watch someone who looks like he's all wasted. I'm like, this guy's fucking awesome. I don't know if you're wasted, but you're 22 and for sure is legal. And you're talking to Dave Letterman's mom on national television. No one knows what sport I do in Minnesota. Everyone plays hockey in my town.
Yeah.
The next day, because you're like, "Oh man, you do those freestyle things on the weekend," like Jonny Moseley.
Yeah.
So you were this like next level, went to Saturday Night Live 3 weeks after the Olympics. Dave Letterman twice, jumped on his show once on a scaffolding thing. You did so many, and this is, well, you're still a skier, right? You're nothing's changed yet. You just won an event. So I'm curious, like how much, because it has to be the biggest change of any skier financially in the freestyle history from one year to the next. Like, what is it? Do you become a millionaire in 1 year because of Olympic gold? Or am I way off and just childhood idol shit?
Yeah, just to back up to the Letterman appearance. Yeah, that was the night, because it was morning. I won the day I won. Then, you do the medal ceremony, and then you go to the IBC, and I did all so it was night there. We did all the morning shows, and then I went out and partied with my family and got hammered and had a great night. And then I had to literally go straight from that to back to the Olympic Village, shower, and turn right back around to go on Letterman at very early in the morning. And that's when I grabbed the bread from the cafeteria. So I was on no sleep, and had been party. So that just to give you a little background on that, and that Texas toast thing, and that ultimately spurred Letterman to have me come and do the whole show. Yeah, I'm trying to think pretty quickly. I got pretty close to making. I think I was just shy of it, but I got pretty close to making $1 million a year pretty quickly. Right away.
And did you ever know of a mogul or aerialist? Did you have legends that you looked up to that you knew personally? Because that's even bigger than Plake, right? So you went from thinking Plake's the shit in '96, 2 years before, when he's following you around, thinking you're really cool when you make $20,000 a year from Hart, to all of a sudden being a millionaire freestyler. Because I never saw that or remember that in the history of me loving the sport. Maybe I look back at early 70s when they were winning Corvettes every weekend and flying private, but that was before I was born. And so I just always looked at you as I was like, wow, man, I don't think anyone's gone from this to that in freestyle. Moguls, aerials, traditional, old school, new school.
Well, yeah, and I don't think there was Donna who won gold, but I was the first one to win gold there. Yeah, I don't know. I doubt it.
You think Donna made $1 million ever?
No, I'm just saying that there was. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much. The thing with the Olympics, the Olympic medal is obviously it brings you into this, for better or for worse, it brings you into this sort of corporate stratosphere of appearances where you're getting paid a pretty good amount just to show up and talk or show your gold medal and stuff like that. And then obviously all your deals get commensurately increased as well. So which doesn't last forever, but it's sort of and you try to you kind of, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what if anyone before me. I guess what I'm trying to think of is who would it have been, right? Who was a male gold medalist? I haven't known
anyone before or after you.
Well, I don't know. There's certainly the freaking. Dude, arguably, are we talking moguls? Or are we talking?
I'm talking anything freestyle. Anything from you want a hot dogging?
Yeah. I don't know. What about all these? Obviously, you've got the Eileen Goos of the world. I guess that's kind of an outlier.
You don't count. She's the third highest paid woman athlete in the world.
I don't know. I think there was a moment, right? And some of it was I won this thing in prime time. A lot of people saw it. But yeah, and then you can't
Why
really
did they love you so much, Johnny?
You can't really compare it because no male has won a gold in moguls since, so we don't know. But moguls, you got to understand, moguls is going that way anyway.
But no, why do they love you so much? I have my theory because I think stars have to align for your scenario. To be honest, and the sport of twin tip skiing got very blessed that your stars aligned and you shined a lot of light on a lot of people in our sport. You created your Jonny Moseley Invitationals, you created video games, you did so much shit for twin tips that you did it. So why do you personally think that the American public loved Jonny Moseley so much in 1998? I know girls that didn't know skiing and they liked you in my school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying. Well, I'm trying to avoid that question because I'm not going to answer it. But but I'm trying to. I'm just trying to recap like what, where where my income sources were coming from at the time. Because obviously that plays a big part of it. Because I certainly, had to went up and down in the subsequent 10 years or whatever, and I was always hedging into other stuff that TV and things like that. So I think obviously there's a certain like, I guess, thing that, look, a gold medal. I mean, you had Peekaboo at the time kind of doing the same thing. I don't know. It's maybe. I guess. What are we getting? Are you getting at the Olympics? Is somehow, you guys know more than I do. You've talked to some of the younger guys. You get the sense that it was a period that doesn't exist in the same way anymore. Because in some ways, I feel like some of these Olympic gold medalists are killing.
You killed it so hard before. Like Alex Hall has multiple X Games golds. An X Games gold automatically in our sport is bigger than an Olympic gold. So when the Olympics does come on board, unless you only did World Cups growing up and USSA or whatever the fuck your feeder system is, maybe like an Andre Brigliotti, that might be your pinnacle. But if you're a real freestyler, creating content, doing different stuff, not trying to have people judge you, but just fucking charging harder than everyone else, like, it's there. So no, I don't think it holds the same weight. What I'm most interested is how much you got out of it, right? No opportunities really come to a winner right now. So I'll give you an example. Let's use 2014 first Olympics for our sport. Josh Christensen won an Olympic gold, right? He's Oakley head to toe. Can't wear Oakley outerwear, but they get to pay him. He's probably a small number. Tanner Hall is a big six-figure number. Tanner Hall no longer has that mainstream value. So what happens in our sport? Tanner Hall gets dropped and they get a cheap Olympian that's a gold medalist. So all of a sudden that was like a huge thing that we saw. We're like, whoa, Olympians are cheap for sponsors. And so it got really weird for us. And I think what's awesome about you is, I was like, wow, you got so many opportunities. And what do you think actually were your biggest like financial opportunities after you won a gold? Where'd they come from? It probably wasn't ski related sponsors.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a little bit of a lot of categories. You kind of move in and out and of different deals. Obviously, the ski industry is its own little world, and you can't really expect too much from, depending on the size of the company, right? So it's kind of like you're basically kind of limited in that world, and that's obviously that's what you always run into when you get. And I didn't understand this as well at the time, but I kind of understand it well now. Is when you become like a mainstream character and you have value outside of the ski industry, you're obviously pulling from a much larger pie, much larger marketing budget when you start getting deals with car companies and major corporations, right? So you have like a double standard. You've got like what you charge these guys, and then you kind of have your sort of industry deals, many of which I definitely like stepped on, trying to, squeeze blood from a rock on them, knowing not trying to get everything in line. So then you kind of figure out that, okay, you kind of have this world, and you've got this world, and you try to create value for all of those guys. I mean, I can't really put it on one company. I mean, I think the one thing that
You didn't have like
Probably.
one big deal, one big commercial, like a deodorant or.
Well, I mean, I can point to one deal I had for 15 years that was a very large deal. That was a good deal. Like with Sprint, right? That was 14 years, and that they used me beyond even when I retired, and then they had me come in and do a lot of speaking, which I got started. Which I was going to say that was kind of like. That was kind of the difference. I think when you have the gold medal, you at least get the right away. You get the opportunity to go speak, and like to speak to. You get hired to basically show up, and those deals like you get showed up for you show up for one day for what you get paid for a whole season by a ski company. I dug into that a lot, and I would say that became a pretty significant, still is a significant portion of my income. And that's the type of thing where, you're providing a direct value for your service that you're doing. And that's the one thing that, when I say I'm milking the gold medal, that's the kind of I wouldn't call it easy money, but that's something that you don't, unless you get a gold medal, that's not happening. Right.
Yeah, people aren't sending an email say, can I talk to you?
Right. Or can you come speak for an hour or whatever,
I'm so glad we naturally ended up here because this is what I wanted to ask you next. What's the most ridiculous speaking engagement you've done? Like, have you you go to some billionaire's nephew's bar mitzvah and just show up, hey, look, we got Jonny Moseley at the bar mitzvah. Like, what's some of the more ridiculous speaking engagements you've done? Appearance type of stuff, yeah.
I try to avoid the bar mitzvahs. I had, just sort of the very personal appearances. I'm kind of drawing a blank. I mean, I don't think I've had anything super outlandish. I'd probably say that the most, as a skier, some of the most ridiculous ones that are kind of crazy are getting paid quite a bit of money to go heli skiing with somebody else.
Oh, that's
like just for fun, like private jet, straight in heli ski for fun and still get paid. That's those are kind of ridiculous, right? Where you're like, sorry, I'm charging you for this. It's really fun.
It's got to be awesome. Like what Trace and Fuzz do, I think. Is it Ski with the Superstars or what do they call it?
Yeah, Ski with the Stars. Sure. Yeah, so, like that type of stuff is pretty surreal and fun.
Do they ever
do
they ever
cool
bring
stuff.
you out to Yellowstone Club to ski with Tom Brady's kids or anything like that?
No. I've been there one time with just a buddy. They would never. I've skied it one time. Yeah, pretty good actually. I was impressed.
Okay, so we're at the 98, 99. The craziest thing I realized today about you, and I don't know if it's true, but for sure in skiing, are you the first person ever to medal in the Olympics and the X Games?
I think I am. I think I was. I mean, I claim that because I claim it because I feel like it was a significant, as you know, at the time, and this ties into your prior pro amateur deal, but when I was on the ski team, I really wanted to do the X Games, I wanted to do pro events, right? Like I was like, I hated being over in Europe competing in moguls while all the pro mogul skiers on the bumps and jumps were like, people would be like, oh, did you see so-and-so on TV this weekend win the bumps and jumps? And I'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm a World Cup mogul skier. What are you talking about? So that's when, after I won it, but the ski team, it wasn't a pro amateur thing. They started making us sign these contracts that would basically commit us to the ski team. So they would basically say if it was a non-sanctioned event, you couldn't go do it. So Jim Moran and I tried to go do, I think it was the pro events, and they were like, if you go do that, you're off the team, blah, 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 blah. So after I won in 98, I basically felt I wanted to for my own career. I was like, A, I need to be in the X Games. B, I need to do these pro events because they're on TV. I want to be on TV 5 times a year, 6 times a year, not just once or twice. So, and I used my leverage to basically say, look, I'm going to do the World Cups I want to do. I'm going to do the pros, and you do what you want with me. And of course, they didn't do it. So that's why and so that was the, when I got then I went and got silver in the 99 X Games. And so at the time, only the snowboarders were allowed to do both. And so I was the only skier that I was the first guy to be able to go Olympics and then X Games. Now, of course, it's standard. The ski team prepares their guys. The ski team is there.
I'm saying you have skateboarding now too. You have surfing. So when I saw that stat and I thought about it, I was like, wow, man, like in the big picture of action sports, you were such a pioneer of the emergence of a FIS and keeping creative in our own side. And you're like 20 some years ahead of that, right? Of some, like, I haven't studied the facts of what other guys have won gold medals in X Games and the Olympics, but I bet it's not more than a handful at most.
Yeah. I mean, it's starting to get more common. It's definitely obviously in the last. Well, if you slice it with just skiing, right? But yes, you're right. It's not that many,
So next thing I need to throw in here. So now we're looking. He wins.
Well, and I had to do different events. Now they just do this. It's not. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I had to do big air in the X Games and moguls and the thing. And I was
we're going to get to slope style in a second.
Yeah.
So now, Jonny does. So it was pretty awesome. So he goes and wins the Olympics. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to go fuck around. Films, like, gets in every movie in the summer because he films on the glacier. And so now everyone sees him as an equal in twin tip skiing. Like, you're a boss. Like, dude, everyone wants to see more of you because you only have shots from the glacier, not from the winter, even though most other guys' segments are 75% summer footage in 98 Degenerates. So then Jonny has, I believe it's your first event, Steamboat, December 98. Is it 98?
You're talking about the Jonny Moseley Invitational?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's what
so
it was.
Jonny has the first.
It couldn't have been Yeah, it was December 98. Yeah.
So Jonny has the first ever invitational in our sport. Tanner's had him, Candide's had him, Yoon's had him, Sammy's had him, everyone's had him. Jonny had the first one ever. It's fucking ill as fuck.
That's
so sick. I believe first place. So this is now he's won in moguls. He's using his name for the sport because everyone's trying to figure out what direction do I go? Do I stay with what I've committed my life to in freestyle, moguls, or do I do something new? And there's mogul guys thinking about this, aerial guys thinking about this. Moseley's like, I just do what I want. So he holds the invitational. It's 12 guys. Correct me on anything I'm wrong. First place is 20 or 30,000 or 50, something ridiculous. $20,000. First place. Everyone gets paid out. So first place, last place get the
down to 16th, I think.
16 people get paid out to show up to the Jonny Moseley Invitational in 1998.
Yeah,
like I don't know. I just want to make sure people know because it's kind of the sign when you make it in the sport, whether it's Candide or Tanner or Yoon, Sammy, etc. When you put your name on something, you kind of give back. And you were at such a point where you didn't even like get into it yet. You didn't even medal at X Games. And you're already trying to create for the sport. And it was like a slope style, I believe, or a triple hit big air.
I'll jump in here. I appreciate the sentiment to hear from your side that people were, curious to see what else I had. And I just wanted to be part of the crew and be part of what was happening just because my nature growing up in Tahoe in Palisades with my brothers was I hated being not on the cutting edge. Like growing up, if you couldn't do a skateboard trick, like that was, you were a loser. Like you needed to learn the trick. Like you got to be, that's the whole point of freestyle. Like, you got to learn the tricks. Like you got to be doing the stuff that's happening. And so it was, I really wanted to be with that crew. I felt like that's why I got into freestyle. So when those guys started that when that whole revolution started, I wanted to be on board. So obviously I jumped off as soon as I could out of the Moguls tour and went and started, competing and all that stuff. But I will say that my intent for the Jonny Moseley Invitational was a little more non-altruistic, if you will. I had a goal to not be a guy who kind of like didn't take advantage of the gold medal. So I didn't want to be seen like years later as someone who like could have done something with that, just kind of like squandered it or whatever. So I also was very insecure and a little bit pissed off about with the notion that mogul skiers were not great skiers, that we were one-trick ponies and that we weren't like great overall skiers.
Who made you think that?
Well, that was just like, that's what I'm saying. That was like an insecurity, but that's like that was the general thought about freestyle skiers, is that they, weren't great skiers. And, the alpine racers love to purport that. And obviously skier cross had just been kind of invented 5-6 years ago or whatever before that. And so I was like, I want to show that, I'm the best skier in the world, like not just a true mogul skier. Like I'm going to invite the 16 who I think are the 16 best skiers in the world. Because to me, the best skier in the world is not just a guy who could do this or just a guy who can do that. It's a guy who can do it all. It's that combined.
2 years previously, Jonny Moseley was the combined mogul aerial ballet champion.
Right. So I had that kind of
go into slope style after the mogul. Like, so I don't know. That's why you're so ill, dude, because you kind of like specialized for a half a second, right? Like you barely specialized in your whole career. Like when you went to do it just to focus to win, and then you went and won, and then you're like, well, that was fun. What else? And so that just to bring you up to speed, why your mentality, like it was visual, your mentality from afar. Just you can do more.
Yeah. I mean, I will give a lot of that. I don't know if I can say that I just picked stuff up. I mean, the free skiing part came to me fairly quickly, the twin tips and all that stuff because of ballet, right? Like I was already doing a derivative of that, landing backwards, doing 7s and 9s off the ground. So once I saw what those guys were doing, that wasn't that I was able to synthesize it pretty quickly. And then that's why in the invitational was a slopes. You had to compete in both. It was a skier cross race and a 3-hit slope style. I think there was a rail in there. I can't remember.
Skier cross in your first one. I forgot about that.
It was skier. That was the whole point. I wanted, because that's why I wanted to invite McConkey, Kreitler, all the guys who came to free skiing from alpine racing. And then I wanted to invite all the guys who came from freestyle and make them get on the same course. And so that was my whole point. And then, of course, I always thought it was bullshit when we showed up and you didn't get paid. So that's why I paid everyone down 16th. And then I made a marketing joke. The last guy got $1 and we made a big deal out of it.
But it was awesome because then that was the most famous thing. Is like I remember more Mike Douglas with $1 bill than did big with 20,000.
Yeah, but I didn't win the first year. Div Big won.
No, did that piss you off?
It was fuck yeah, that pissed me off. Money? Yeah, the fucking Div Big to piss me off. Exactly. I won the next year, but it was still like, it was pissed me off. Yeah, no, it was great. I thought it worked out great, and I thought it sort of showed all the. And she might go, oh, and the third leg of that was, I was trying to get us on TV, like. I wanted to be on TV 6 times a year. Like that's the only way you're going to keep it going is to get exposure. So that's why I said I'm doing the bumps to NBC. It was a full. I did the deal with IMG and NBC to do that for 2 years. So I was like, I would like to television.
I would like everyone had twin tips on, and I would like everyone.
I would like to say I was. Well, thank you. I appreciate you seeing it that way, Eric. And I did feel an obligation to like do stuff because I had leverage. People were coming to me and asking me, what do you want to do? I mean, that's how that happened. I was like, the guy from IMG.
Man. Sprint
And then all
bought
my
me one of the
sponsors
biggest
would
dinners
jump in.
ever. And I was with you and Didvig like 1 year in like 2000 or something in Winter Park. And like that president of Sprint was there, some Beaver Creek it was.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? I'm just, I bet you don't remember it, but it was awesome. Great meal.
Yeah. Anyway.
I got a question about something else that your name has been on.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask you a question to lead into it. So, Johnny, what if it snowed in San Francisco?
Yeah.
And of course, we're talking about Mad Tricks.
Exactly.
Even though I've heard you talk about it in interviews, the gamers didn't like it. Having a ski video game is sick. And who cares if the gamers didn't like it? I love it. I love that you have your own ski video game. That's awesome.
Oh, hell yeah. That was the dream. I mean, that was surreal. And, yeah, no, I guess, but the competitive guy in me wanted it to also be super successful, right? And like, financially more successful and all that stuff. But so that's why I'm always like, sometimes I try to wonder why it didn't, do better. And so, but it's still, you're right. It's still a capsule. We had a ski game and, hopefully it didn't ruin all other ski games for all the other kids. But
no, believe me, there's still ski games out there. You were just one of the first. So how did that come about? Because I am curious how you got into. Because like Iberg either said in the interview or was saying in the intro, you're like the Tony Hawk of skiing, some would say, and that's some Tony Hawk shit right there, having your own video game. So I'm just wondering how that all came to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, the short answer is Tony Hawk teed it up for all of us, right? Like, as soon as his game went Richter, all these guys everybody was looking for how can we do something like it, right? And this particular deal came up. I met this guy at some cocktail. I don't know, it was some event, something I was at. And I can't quite remember, but it felt like a party environment, but a professional, like some gig. And he introduced himself. He had basically been part of when video games went from cartridge to disc. He created that. And I can't remember it. The company was called 3DO, but he had made a ton of money doing that. So yeah, basically I think he was at EA or whatever and then went over and did that on his own. Great guy named Trip Hawkins, and he was like, why don't you have a video game? Let's do it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And that's when we got Tanner and brought and I immediately was like, this game we got to get the young crew in here because, it's got to reach, I need help because like, I can't do all this stuff anyway, like all the different nuance and all the tricks. And I wanted buy-in from at least our core crew. You know what I mean? I wanted their input. And there was a great guy named Kuda there who he was the video game designer. He was the guy who made the game, and he just jumped in with all. Did you ever meet him, Eric? Kuda, long black hair, big dude.
When I was a young little man.
He loved it, man. He jumped right in and started hanging with Tanner, and Evan Divbig was a big part of it. And, went up to Whistler and skied with us. He was just part of like he was just part of like the advisory group, if you will, like not Divbig, sorry, not Divbig, dude. Raps.
Yeah.
Raps. Evan Raps. Not
that makes sense because he was in Tahoe.
Exactly. I was just trying to get the guys in it that would know what they were, could help deal with like some of the little. Plus, I was getting ready to go to 2002, so it was a lot of work to be done.
So to give you your props on this one too, so the time period he's talking about is like probably 2000 to 2001 development. So it's pretty crazy when you're developing a game on a console in these years. To do that in 1 year is not fucking normal. So just to put it in perspective, as a guy who builds games a lot, even in nowadays where it's easy with coding programmers. And so you did it in a 1 year process, probably from this conversation to release of, I think it was the day after Christmas 2001. So because the only reason Tanner was in that game, like if you look at him, he has dread. So that was 2001 when he won for the first time. This is how fast that game came out. Like it wasn't something that happened right after the Olympics. So Jonny, well, he's getting ready to go to the next Olympics, having almost a full fucking 2001 World Cup schedule to get him back. And he's not doing free ski events. He's making a free ski fucking game. Well, he's fucking moguling and handing it off to the fucking free skiers to be like, you got this, dogs. Tanner's 17. Raps is 20. It's so fucking, Jonny, like what you did. So, you know, like when I look at that time period, because you already had a different goal that was personal and you gave another gift like your invitationals and you're like, well, I'm doing my own shit, but this is what I can give to you guys for opportunity. Run with it.
That's I'll take that. I mean, I had, you know, just to be super candid with it, I always felt a little bit like I said, I wanted it to be the best game it could be, and I wanted it to represent all of us, and I wanted it to be good. And, you know, even though I was into the free skiing world, I always felt like a little bit of a, you know, those guys would vibe me a little bit though, you know, Kusan and those guys, because like Kusan would give me a lot of shit because I was kind of like mainstream and they were like in the weeds.
Second U.S. Open ever in '99. You know. You did not compete. I didn't think about it until I remembered the vibe. And I was like, yo, you showed up with your beanie, dope-ass sunglasses, had a camera crew, and you're like, I don't even need to compete. So just to put it in perspective, that's probably the vibe. But you're like, yo, fuck you, bitches. And then in 2000, he comes back and fucking wins slopestyle and gets second in big air. And it was ill. And then he goes like, all right, and I'm out. And then he went back to moguls.
And here's your video game. You guys could be in it.
There's been no one in the history of sport that has come in for 1.5 years, participated, won, beat everyone that gave their life every day to it, and then peaced out. And then said, I still love you guys and I love the sport. And then rewrote the rule book in a sport you left 3 years earlier.
But at what price, you know? So I just to give you, I love that narrative about myself, and trust me, thank you. But I remember, I remember the compete. You're talking about the '99 slopestyle at. Fuck, that's when Moran got hurt, right? That's when
Bellinger won.
But I remember it being. Oh, is that what it did? Bellinger win that? Yeah, it was like a really weird little course up high, right? Like up top. And I was dating that little actress chick. I remember being there, and I remember her being like, "Why don't you compete?" And I'm like, and it was because I don't know if I was burned out or I was most likely. I think I was like scared, like that I was going to lose. You know, and that's a bad thing. Like I got into a zone where I didn't want to put myself up against a lot of those guys. In fact, Cesare will tell you a story like when I first landed that flat spin in front of him in Blackcomb. I remember going and being like, when he wanted to film it, and I was like, yeah, but don't burn me, dude. Because in my mind, I was thinking like he wanted to burn me, you know, like. And,
you were already that defensive right after.
Yeah, it was a bad thing, but I was kind of like, I had my I thought I would crash and he'd like show it. I had that like notion that, and it's I try to teach my kids this, you know, like when you get to, I think it was debilitating, and it probably hurt me going back in 2002. Two things, like I was trying to make the most of all this stuff, the video game, trying to cash in on everything I could put my name to and get ready for the 2002 games. And you know, you don't get something for nothing. Like it all takes a little time. It all takes a little energy out of you. But then the second thing is, you know, when you get in that zone where you get frozen and you think everyone's watching you and you can't innovate and you don't want to crash or fail, it's a bad zone. And I never used to be that guy. But I remember being in that zone. Everybody's watching.
Jonny Moseley Invitational a month and a half prior. And then you show up in Vail with a camera crew. No one has twin tips. And you are already bigger than everyone there while they're all sleeping in their cars. Like you were bigger than the sport before it existed. It was dope.
Johnny, I want to follow up on what you're just talking about. So you had this, you're on top, and of course it's great to sit on top, but you got to defend it constantly if you're going to compete. So then you go to 2002 Olympics, and you get fourth. So did that absolutely crush you, or because you could play like the technicality game and be like, oh, maybe I should have won? Were you still kind of confident in yourself, being like, hey, I innovated and wasn't rewarded, so that's on them, that's not on me?
Well, that's how I protected my ego for many years, is basically by, buying into the sort of like, ripped off narrative and all that stuff, right? But years, as that wore off and I had to reconcile with like, what might have happened, it took me years to get over that. Yeah, it was rough. And so just because I'm not a guy who like generally blames people for when I lose, I tend to look inward, but that one really was hard. And, obviously if you really look at it, I could have done things differently, right? Like I didn't, I skied slow, right? I was too slow. Now, part of the reason I skied slow is because I had to set up for that trick where the other guys could go straight through it and do quad twister and not even hit the transition. I don't know if you've ever watched the video, but, Gianni and Travis and all those guys, they hit that thing full speed and absorbed the bottom air and then did quad twister, which you could never doing a cork 7 like I was doing. Now, some of the kids do it these days, but back then it was like I was just fresh trying to do it.
You got landing pads with no moguls.
Yeah, so I have a lot of mixed emotions around it, but yeah, it at the time I lived off the that I got kind of robbed narrative, and honestly the biggest look back lesson of that thing is that when they approved my trick, which was about the summer before the FIS, I really needed to, and I wasn't there for this. We had a representative from the ski team, but I was not a guy who studied the rule book. I just never in my life in freestyle skiing did I know what things were worth and how much points were. I was never a guy. I never looked at the judges. I never was like I got ripped off. I was always just trying to do. I figured if I did the right thing, I would win, and that was it. So when I submitted this trick and they approved it, I never even bothered to think about, okay, what degree of difficulty did they give it? Is it what is it the word? And it turns out they gave it the same degree of difficulty as a quad twister. And that is ultimately what sunk me, because as we all know, when did you learn that? I didn't really figure that out until, after the Olympics. I'm not even sure I looked at it.
Year or years?
Yeah, probably within pretty short order, that. And I'm not even sure I would have had any leverage. Like they barely approved it. And, I'm not sure if I went back and said, wait a minute, you got to make it worth more points than that. Now, because, it's way cooler and it's way harder to do. And I don't know if you ever saw the Shaun White article in the Wall Street Journal where they asked him this question why he did the double McTwist so far before the Olympics. Wasn't he afraid it was going to get ripped off? And he said, well, I didn't want to suffer from the Mosley effect. And so his theory was that he was like actually inviting the judges up to the side of the half pipe to see him do it, to like show it to them so they could see how hard it was and what it was. Now, granted, in snowboarding, they have an overall impression judge. They don't really do DD, so it's a different story. But, in hindsight, I was like, oh, I'm going to show these guys. I'm going to do this trick that nobody's going to do, and everyone's going to understand how awesome it is. But what I really needed to do was like get the freaking start a little earlier, get the judges on board, show them that this is a nasty trick that nobody's doing. It's going to be helpful for the sport. But what ended up happening is it was like the judges were handcuffed by a rule book and a DD and all that stuff, and they couldn't. There was no slot for them to say, "Hey, that was freaking hot dog freestyle. And but yeah,
Did you want to grab in that trick?
I think about it. I mean, of course, dude, but I wasn't.
No, but what you're trying to is my question.
Oh no. Okay. Dude, just to give you some details on that, and this is for you, Ethan, too. At that point, I was doing flat spin 9. I did flat spin 10 barely, kind of horked it around at that same 2000. I had a switch rodeo 7 in me. I had that flare in the pipe. I had the standard cork 7 tail grab that I did in the ski movie Off the Rock.
Quick super fan question. Did I see you do a switch backflip on Stuntman skis in a Warren Miller movie?
I did switch backflip.
What year did you do a switch backflip in?
Yep. That was I'm going to say 2000. No, sorry. Yeah, probably 2000.
Okay, I was wondering if you 99? Did it before Falou.
No, that was after the Olympics. No. I did not do it before Falou, bro. No.
I just saw it for the first time, and I was like,
no.
It's so old.
That might have been one and done, too. I might have been like, I'm going to do that one time.
I didn't see you landing.
Oh, no, I stuck it. Oh, I might have did another one. You know what I did, actually, Iberg? Did you ever see when they built the jump here in San Francisco when Pastrana launched off into the freaking thing? Yeah. I did switch back full on that jump.
Wait, on the dirt jump, Pastrana jumped his
No, they built it. This is the year before we were actually in the regular X Games. They built a ski jump, a scaffolding jump on the pier where Pastrana jumped.
Oh yeah, you ski.
And
time out. Awesome story.
Yeah,
Summer X Games, San Diego '97, and Summer X Games.
Yeah. This was after that. Yeah,
it's 1998. Summer X Games had skiing, big fucking air, and all the Tahoe kids got to compete in the one in San Francisco, and all the new Canadian Air Force in '97 got to compete down in San Diego.
Yeah, '97. Yeah. That was the official entrance of free. That was the official first time the free skiing got in the X Games. Did they compete? It was just like an exhibition, right?
Both times it was exhibition.
Both times. So I guess what I'm getting at is that these were the equivalent tricks. But no, I'm saying going into the Olympics, dude, it wasn't until a week or two before the Olympics that I could actually do that cork 7 in the moguls, man. I went to Steamboat for like a week and trained. I was still trying to do the flat spin. And I finally was like, fuck it. I'm doing cork, basically, whatever it was. Almost like a back full, basically. It's like a D-spin. So, cork 7, essentially. I wasn't thinking about grabbing
as a champion, you've never fucking won without fucking practice, repetition, consistency, and doing it for a while. And no matter what you ever, maybe your first year in a slope style, you could be innovative because the only thing you had to do was add a 180 and you could be the best ever in the whole entire world in 98, 99, and 2000.
That's true. It's just added a 180.
Yeah, even all the way to Woods doing the 1260 in 2000.
I got a question for you guys. Yeah, when do you think it turned from Ethan when do you think it turned from first gen to second gen,
on doubles, because we told everyone you couldn't do a double. Mike Wilson in 2004 did a double at the U.S. Open. It was rotated, grabbed, and we said, that's aerials, 2004. So nothing was allowed until Yoon Olsen said, I'm just a superstar.
Yeah.
I do what I want. And then when he did his double backflip, side flip 180 and called it a kangaroo flip and gave it a name and won the X Games in 2007 or 8, that's when Yoon, who held the keys, right? Let's call these gatekeepers, said, fuck the rules. And we're just going to do whatever we want. And as soon as Yoon opened that gate, it was Olympic time, it was everything, because we could watch those switch 1080s from 2003 to 2006 or 7. And people were pissed because they weren't double flipping, right? TJ Schiller was still winning in 2006 with the switch 14.
Yeah, TJ. Oh yeah, Ethan. Do you see it at that time too?
Well, I got a question.
Yoon is the flipping point. Back to your earlier question. I mean, that's a guy who probably, if you're gonna say leveraged off one trick, more than the 360 Mew crap, I would say Yoon.
He's definitely in competition for it with you. I think. Well, so I got a question for Iberg, and this will help answer. From my perspective, Iberg, do you think Tanner is a first generation or second generation free skier?
He's first, because that whole kind of Mosley and the guys because Tanner comes from Moguls.
Yeah, that's why I think
and the whole idea is, I mean, even Johnny's coach in '98, Cooper Shell, who was like his agent at the time and all this, like, I mean, Johnny knew who Tanner was, and Johnny was the shit.
Freaking Tanner was, we all knew Tanner was. He was going to be the next great mogul skier.
So he was one of these people in the era that had to pick, because he was on a full mogul point in '98. He was doing Johnny's run and all his competitions in Intermountain and Utah. Like, everything was there, but there was a void to fill because I could film him. And there was a void to fill between these competitions to go to U.S. Open or Jim Moran event that you were at, which was Tanner's first slopestyle event in the spring of.
Oh, you mean in Bertha Pass?
Yeah. So that was Tanner's first ever slopestyle win, right? You were fucking wasted. It was awesome.
That's such a dope video that's going around of Tanner doing that run there. Yeah. Did you post that, or where did that come from?
Willie Boyle won, or Willie won the day before. Tanner won. Tanner won like a pair of 210 skis, 210 centimeter skis. It was awesome. He's like, this will pay, and then we traded it for gas money, which was only $20 back to Utah at the time, and a bag of weed, and we were stoked. We were staying at the Sullins house, if you remember them,
in Winter Park or something.
But so this time period is just awesome to me. Like, so you now have won an X Games, a U.S. Open, an Olympics.
Oh, I never won X Games. I got silver.
Silver, sorry. So either way, you podium.
That's I haven't won it.
Putting out a game. So '99, I guess what's fun to me, because I'm a film guy, is I believe the winter of '98, '99, you also probably dedicated mostly to filming with MSP TGR, or were you not getting into filming till the next winter when you won the U.S. Open and stuff?
No, I mean, I immediately was like, that's the next thing I want to do. I want to get into that. And I believe I filmed The Realm with TGR in, was it the spring of '98? Was it the same season as the Olympics, or was it '99?
I think it
feels like it was '99 when I did that trip in Alaska.
'99, I believe you signed with Phoenix, and then all of a sudden everyone was running for your money. I learned in this film industry between MSP and TGR. As everyone was 19-year-old getting into the ski world.
Everyone was what?
Heaven. Also, I'm going to tangent quick because Phil Bellinger, I talked to him this morning, and something else, because I keep promoting how much you promoted the sport and other people by putting Tanner, Raps, Vinny in your ski game, creating the Mosley, but like, you were a huge factor in putting the Phils on, like on Phoenix. Like, and Bellinger even that, I was like, what do you got for me, Phil? He's like, all I know is he always thought we were awesome. So to me, because that's who I started my whole career with, other than Tanner. I worked with Tanner my first year, and then hung out with the Phils the next couple of years.
Yeah.
During that, when they got put on hard by Phoenix. But so Ethan, Phoenix is this Japanese company that did outerwear, and the amount of money they put into helping the sport grow at the first couple of years was unlike. My first paycheck in life was $40,000 cash in an envelope from them year before I ever made a movie in my whole fucking life. Big up fucking Chisei-san. Or fucking, who is the head lady?
Harumi
Kumo.
Harumi Kido. She's the freaking best.
Yeah, Harumi, man. Dude, this place is a 100-year-old company. They have a Hotel Grand Phoenix all made out of gold and shit. It is awesome. So point being a long story, Johnny, is like, once again, like from the Phils, like you always promoted other people, like to everyone when you didn't have to. You know, like you don't have to, and that's a big part about putting people on when you get opportunity. You know, like Johnny had all these opportunities. There's no reason he has to tell a lady in Japan, look at how dope these kids are too, because they got paid, Johnny. They were making
they were great. I'm trying to. I don't think I found them though. I think you know what, they
just
filmed for
supported
TGR
them at
or
the
something,
highest
right?
level.
Yeah, definitely, because I definitely was. They're a killer though.
And Phil even brought up, he goes,
here we go on a ride with the new freestylers. Here we go. Wasn't that there? Do you remember that? You don't remember that?
Now that you say it, I gotta go. We actually
that was there.
No,
I remember that their segment. I think that might have been in TGR's or
Area 51
in the Warren Miller one. Yeah.
But like even that, like when you brought Ice or Air to San Francisco, because what if it did snow in San Francisco? We'll tell you in a minute. But like,
oh my God.
You know, like with Ballinger, they opened a D-structure. And he's like, I can't believe
that's right.
My like shop when we opened it in San Francisco. Like, no way. Like just lots of things that you've done for people, you know, where it's just like you're superstar, man. You don't have to, like, that fact you like want to talk about tricks and daffies and twisters and spreads and shit. It's fucking dope.
Well, I do. I appreciate your love, and I do. It is nice to get to see the whole thing, to be part of this whole thing. But I do feel like getting in the weeds with all this stuff is important because you can look at it from a big picture perspective, but really it all moved on these little nuances, like these little tricks. Like it all grew from these, I guess it's almost like this incessant need to keep like making forward progress that these athletes that we've all talked about are obsessed with. And that still goes on today. Like you look out there and the kids, everybody's just trying to iterate constantly, and that really is the fundamental of the sport. And if you look at it in that lens, that's what ties me and you together with Ethan and that next gen. I have these kids that I ski with that are my son's age, and they all, you can see them kind of like look at me and look at the shit that we did and like sort of be like, what is that? Like it looks so weird. Like, but once they get a little older and they start to see like what they did is now being iterated on. It's the common thread, because I remember it with the freestyle. Like I remember it with Cooper and the guys who coached me and stuff. Is they, we would always like look at their stuff and be like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, what is that? And they'd be like, look at our stuff and be like, shit, Jim Bob did that 10 years ago, but it wouldn't be exactly that, right? It would be like, close, but not the same. So it's all this like little nuance that is really the thread that ties it all together. But in the end of the day, it's just like the need to kind of like show off and keep trying to do like a little tweak on that or a little tweak on that. And every once in a while, there's a big fucking tweak, right? Like, somebody does something totally crazy and it changes and it lays down the mark,
Yeah.
That was a good tangent. Now back to movies.
Sorry.
Like, so you're in the TGR MSP Poor Boys movie. You're like everything 99, 2000. So movies, is it ever an element like competition to you? Like where you had events that you created, World Cups that you were in, freestyle events, freestyle skiing events. Like, did you ever see movie making through what you created as a huge part that you wanted to get into?
It's a very good, it's an interesting thought experiment, Iberg, because I think when I always wanted to be in the movies, like growing and watching Warren Miller and watching Stump, and that was like, I wanted to be in there, but I never realized until I did it, when I had the opportunity to do it, I was like, holy crap, this is a whole nother competition. In my mind, I was like, oh, I'm going to like have fun. That looks so easy. Those guys just film. They don't have to like get up and train moguls and do all this stuff and icy events. They only go when it's good. And then I got in there and started filming with TGR and up in the mountains and, in the freaking hairball environments and waiting around and like, waiting for good weather and all the pressure. And then, the end of the day, your segment's getting compared to somebody else's, like a Seth Morrison. And you're like, holy shit, this is like, might be more competitive than the Olympics. Like, this is gnarly. And the consequence for screwing up is dying. Like, it's like,
Why?
I was like, holy shit, this is a whole nother thing.
Why do you go from resort mogul skiing, rain park skiing, jumping, and be like, yo, my film dream is Alaska. I want to go to Akula in a helicopter. Like, it's really like, I see you're versatile and that you want to do it all, but like, I laughed at Tanner. Like, I'd always be like, go film you're learning how to ski with MSP. All that's in the money, and I want to get your tricks. So, because I enjoyed you as a fan the most at Summertime Glacier dope ass skiing, where you learn tricks when it's nice to land on that soft snow, how come you didn't do the like super park approach, like with Powder Magazine? Like Did Big showed up at that shit, was doing like pinned out nines on the quarter pipe, and you had Johnny DeCesare, who is a super fan. So you had access to like be doing tricks like all your friend mogul skiers, JP, JF, Vinny, who's focused on just tricking off the easiest cheese wedges into powder. Like, imagine you're like, let's go film. And then all you had to do is practice your dinner roll into powder all day. And then you get one shot. You think it's the best day ever. And then you get fucked up. You weren't scared once.
Yeah.
Like airbag training.
I know. Well, that's what it's.
Man, why'd you go to Alaska?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I'm actually understanding the question.
I'm asking you, how do you go from moguls freestyle to mountain as a choice of how you want to showcase your skill set?
Well, it goes back to that, like, narcissistic / insecure desire to prove that I'm more than X, and that I can do that. Besides, just the allure of like, I think there's when you watch someone ski a big line in Alaska, it's just like, how can you not want to do that, right? It's just like, Jesus, can I do that? I want to do that. Yes, and
I get you from squaw, so everyone knows people that get chairlift and squaw are fucking different than the rest of the world. They all race to the bottom through different ways and degrees.
Yes, the culture there is, you are not considered sort of, and let's just get right down to it, right? I mean, that was the rise of McConkey, right, in squaw.
Kreitler was not squaw, right?
Kreitler, exactly, that whole crew, etc. So, you're seeing who's sort of being lauded as the top of the industry, who are the guys that are being sort of like featured in the ads, and who are the guys that are like doing the coolest shit that everyone's talking about. And I guess actually, and they were kind of already on their way, right? Like really in earnest, and you can correct me on dates here, but by the time the 1080 and the whole free ski movement got started, those guys had already created the big mountain free ski movement was already well on its way, right? Like they were already the pros.
Well, they were the superstars before.
They were the superstars, exactly. So I was. That's correct. So I was like wanted to be like those guys too. So I was trying to knock down both stones, and so I think there's that. I was just trying to do everything, trying to be like the man. That's it, I guess. I don't know
But
any
is
other
scary
way
too much?
to put it. There was a couple things that I guess would explain why I didn't maybe dig into it more. Obviously I went TGR, and that was a great session. Like, got a ton of good filming up there. Definitely gave me a whole new like respect for the whole filming only world, for those guys that just compete in there. I was like, okay, this is serious. This is like, these guys are, this is a real, this is its own competition. I did more stuff with Warren Miller. We did that. I did that segment with JP.
You remember though, my first thing I ever edited in my whole life was your 2000 footage from MSP.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I had to do it to prove to Phoenix that they should give me 40,000.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I guess I remember that. Yeah.
So Phoenix gave me all the footage they had access to from MSP, and they're like, edit this up with the Phil's footage that you have and whatever. So I edited this, but the shit you had with them in 2000, man, I remember, because I edited dope shit. I should find it. You got rap music and stuff. You looking all fucking super dope on like the MSP TGR style, Johnny. But
I remember, yeah, I remember being kind of a pussy on that shoot. We had just come off of Vegas trade show, and I went to freaking Canada with Seth, Chris Davenport, and shit. Well, I'm forgetting like another. What did I say? And Shane, and freaking Shane. And
it's
so
3 reasons you felt like a pussy.
Yeah, it's 3 reasons. And it was like really big terrain, and it was kind of bony. And I was like, damn, I'm going to go down and jump off of that. And I'd get down there and be like, this doesn't feel like I could jump off of this. Like, and Shane was like Billy goating these crazy lines where it was just like ding, 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 in like low snow environment. I was like, I was not feeling it, at least for that big mountain
like
segment.
Shane, I don't know if that's called skiing. He's like, no,
yeah.
Billy goating. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. So, but that was fine. And then I did put down some things. I went and shot that like little bits and pieces. I think if I look back at my filming sort of time, and then of course after 2000, I decided to go back to the Olympics because I was like, well, shit, I got to go to the Olympics. I didn't spend my whole life. Honestly, the whole reason I even decided to start training for the Olympics again was because I was like, dude, I could do this dinner roll in the moguls. That'd be sick. And that was literally, of all the shit I tell people, what I say, that was my number one motivation.
And you love moguls.
To try to do that. Yeah, and I love moguls. But it was really just that task. Could I do that? Could I bring that in? But then obviously the filming thing kind of like went to zero because the training for the Olympics is like all consuming. And then after that, I don't know. That shit post 2002 is a whole another story. I think I started to get a little bit like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And so I never really went back and just dug into like the life of filming. And I got to say that the life of a filmer is more full-time than anything because of a filming athlete, because you basically have to be there. You can't really mix like any normal jobs with being a good athlete in a film, because you pretty much need to be ready to go at any time. You need to be able to spend a lot of time on the road, be there when it's good, stay there for till it's not good. It's an aggressive lifestyle. I started to realize that, and I think I just was like, this isn't where my main income is coming from. It's definitely going to be a departure. And I took obviously after 2002 I didn't even really ski that much. I kind of I started doing the MTV stuff, went to school.
You're the only one from opportunity where you've never had to question, should I push it more? Another year, should I keep filming?
Well, I started to get a little like risk averse. I mean, I just kind of started to become I don't know. I just kind of
you had opportunity that outweighed the fucking.
that's part of the problem is I had opportunities that didn't involve as much risk. For better or for worse.
Like what I'm saying is
for better or for worse.
Awesome because not a lot of people have it. Even Tanner at 40 years old right now, he's like, well, I have to keep stacking shots. That's what I do, because there's no other opportunity that helps eliminate the risk that brings the opportunity for him. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's someone that earned it. So it's super fun to see.
I don't know. It's good and bad. It's conflicting. Sometimes I think in life it's amazing to have something that you're grinding into all the time and not do that risk analysis type stuff, to just be like, this is what I want to do, and I got goals right? here, and
we never seen no one like you that went so hard and went out on top, and like, even though it's fourth place, whatever, it's a fucking score. But I'm saying you went out on top on everything you did. And it was like, dude, like, because you have that winner mentality, so you know what that is. I mean, it's your stupid dirt holes in your documentary, right? It's you do shit that no one else does, right? And when I say stupid dirt holes, I want to put it in perspective of respect.
Oh, no, I thought
1994 Olympics, they did a side documentary on NBC of Jean-Luc Picard working out in his backyard with his homemade training. Stones and like shit hip sleds and stuff.
I don't. Did they shoot that like was it in the Olympic broadcast type of thing?
Yeah, and so it's his whole special whatever. Or the not the Langlois, LaRoche brothers, jumping into a frozen pond with Eve. You always had that thing where it's like Johnny always did extra shit where it was known and approved in the shit that you put out as far as events, but it's work ethic, and so like, I think that's a fun one too, of everyone that we talk to, young and old, and they have to see it too. Like the work ethic you brought till your last day of giving 100% towards the sport, it's pretty fucking nuts.
Thanks.
So it's like, it's more of a choice that you made after that. And it makes sense. But because it's crazy opportunity. I mean, you went and hosted MTV shows for a fucking decade. Should I show up where everyone loves me? They give me a paycheck and I drink stuff and then I go somewhere in an airplane. I'm on MTV, bitches. Or do I go maybe like hang out with McConkey and Billy Goat on shit and feel like a pussy all weekend and try to push myself in directions maybe I shouldn't?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that math going on for sure. A lot of that
easy,
math, man. It's good and bad. I mean, in some ways, it's like I definitely left some on the table over there. I feel like there was
left a lot on the table, man.
As far as like what I could have laid down on film, and I felt like I was right on the cusp of doing all that, of doing the tricks in the backcountry. Like that was always obviously the goal, and being in lines and doing cork sevens and stuff like that while skiing. And I was getting close and I was there, but I didn't really spend the time to really lay down some of the stuff that I think I could have been capable of. So I mean, it's good and bad. I mean, it was nice to be able to be extended this sort of like transition out, but on the other hand, it also
2024.
I could have dug in a little bit. 16 and 13.
You have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. You're healthy. We're talking about 2002, man. You fucking every choice you've made is right. Everything you've done is awesome, and so don't question it. I just want to make sure you know how awesome you were there. Because imagine, didn't go back to moguls. If you were already the best in 2000 against the guys who did it a lot more than you, where you could have been. If you came back and got fourth after dudes that spent the last 4 years focusing on that one day of their life, you're better than them. Like, it's fun. Like, but I mean, like, you definitely made the right choices, man. Like, and even like after this, we'll get into it. I'm going to give it to Ethan and then we can go ice or air generation.
Yeah, you boys, I do have to go pick up, speaking of my kids, like soon. So
How long we got? Give us an exact time. We'll check it out.
You've got 10 to 15
10 to 15
minutes.
Beautiful. Okay.
Okay.
Well, this is good because I got one more question.
Yeah.
Well, leading into this topic that I wanted to cover before you left, did you get invited to host SNL before the 2002 Olympics or after?
So the way I remember it is the call came in about I'm going to say a week before the Olympics in 2002 started.
Hell
it was
yeah.
a very close in to the Olympics. I want to say it was between January and sometime in January if the Olympics
you
were
get
in
a
February.
host if you don't win.
Yeah, it was. They never said. They never said whether was it dependent on whether I'm going to win or not. I just don't know if they basically you're hosting it, so I had to leave. I actually left a week before to go there to host it. There was no stipulation on whether I won or not. My understanding, I did one of the kids who was my I don't know what they call him, a showrunner basically, or he was basically there to take care of everything for me. But turns out he was sort of, when they had been trying to figure out who could carry the show, they were going through a list of possible athletes, and he was like, dude, you got to get Mosley, And so I think it was a combo of well, he had won before, but it's more about is he willing to do the stuff that we want him to do? It was a little bit of a combo of they had seen my antics. Let's put it that way.
So this was before your second Olympics, just to clarify.
Yeah, right. Sorry, it was right before the 2002 Olympics. Yes.
Do you think your opening monologue would have been as funny if you won? Because I think what you leaned into with the fourth place thing was the funniest thing you could have done. I thought that went really well.
It's a great point. Yeah, no, you're right. Probably would not have been as funny with the fourth place celebration. No, I think you're right. I haven't not thought of it, but yeah. I think that gave the writers something to work on there.
Because I'm coming to the conclusion that I think, and obviously I haven't lived your life, but I think you winning fourth with the I got robbed thing, because it's more you could have been a traditional mogul skier and done the traditional mogul tricks, but you went out on a limb and you were the people's champ, landing in fourth, and then you get to go on SNL with that slant and be yeah, I did my own thing and they didn't reward me, but I'm the people's champ. And then
Have you ever heard a crowd boo? You heard a crowd boo I was there, just so you know. It was epic, dude. Everyone had signs in 2002. It said "No more twisters."
Yeah,
the audience.
That's right.
When his score came up, not his first, the whole crowd, and there was a grandstand of 20,000 people. Man, I don't think there's ever been boos and moguls before.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So we gotta wrap this up so we can finish within the time frame. Yep. Jonny, that was awesome. Eric, I know you're a super duper fan. Is there anything that you're going to walk away from this and be damn, I needed to ask him that before?
Yeah, Muffin Man. What's up with the Muffin Man? everyone brings up the Muffin Man.
Oh, yeah, the Muffin Man.
Muffin Man.
Huh?
Are you the original Muffin Man? Or do you just do the trick Muffin Man, or why they bring it up?
The story of the Muffin Man. Let's see here.
To close us out, the story of the Muffin Man.
I had a buddy, and let's see, he liked to smoke his weed in muffins, and so we would partake in muffins, and so he wrote this song called "The Muffin Man," and I think he already had it, and so. That was and I believe, the kind of I guess you're referring to the outside, the Outside magazine article.
No, I don't even know. Tanner's just ask him about the Muffin Man, and I'm isn't
yeah.
Tom Cooley like the Muffin Man? 360 Daffy holding it. And then Tanner's like, no, just ask me about the Muffin Man. And I was like, okay. So I didn't know 360 fucking Daffy held the grab. So he must have been talking about smoking weed out of a muffin.
Yeah, exactly. I had a bacon in a muffin, and it was. I remember here. Here's kind of how I remember it. When after I won the Olympics, I wanted to throw a party for all my buddies. Like I was psyched. Right, I'd finished the season, and
22 years old,
22. And I was like, I think I'd gotten down off of all this, I'd go back and finish the season. I had all kinds of stuff going on. I was like, dude, let's go rage. So we we've got this houseboat up near here. It's like, and so we went up to the houseboat and I had my buddies and I had my buddy who plays guitar and we were, water skiing and partying our asses off. And at the time, Outside Magazine wanted to do an article on me. And I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. I'm going to invite this writer to come hang out with us and see let's do it. And my agent was like, no, bro, no, don't do this. And I was like, it'll be fine. And that the rest is history. He goes up there and he turns out to be not sort of on the program. And he sort of writes about this whole weekend. And one of them was the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man moniker that I think.
So there's a story
I'm not exactly sure
magazine of them
not
going
exactly
to
sure
party
how
with
he
Olympic gold medalist
got it.
Jonny Moseley and smoking weed out of muffins.
Yeah, we weren't smoking weed out of muffins. It was eating muffins.
Edible.
Edibles. Yeah. That's, and I'm not sure how he, I think he had been talking with the guys whose song it was, and then he just sort of dubbed me the Muffin Man.
Fucking
Because after that weekend, that's kind of how I recollect it. So
there's the Muffin Man story.
True story. I never knew.
Yeah.
Heard. Well, thank you so much, Johnny. Is there anything that you want to plug? I mean, these are coming out in the fall. If you want to line up anything, are you still narrating? You got anything that you want to promote while you're
yeah. Hell yeah. We got, we'll have the Warren Miller film will be coming out. They're doing a little seggy out of Squaw, out of Palisades. Man, going backwards really makes me want to go backwards with the name too.
Yeah.
75th anniversary of Palisades and Warren Miller. So look for that. Yeah, I mean, I always got my stuff going on. I'm at Palisades doing my thing. I got a new glove coming out, you guys. I'm doing a signature glove with a Vermont company called Based. That should be pretty cool.
Ski glove.
Yeah.
You have a signature series onesie.
The onesie I don't have a signature series with, but I was, Tipsy L's for, a long time. So I got a lot of onesies, but no signature series. But yeah, so I think that's probably enough for now.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for being here, dude. That was a nice long interview. Probably longer than most of the interviews that I saw in my research. Maybe the longest, Iberg. I think that's...
Yeah, I couldn't find anything, man. Your last NBC one was your best thing that related to skiing I ever seen. That came out 3 months ago.
Oh, that thing I did for the Steve
and I was blown away. I was like, man, there is nothing Johnny talking skiing out there. So I'm so thankful for this, man.
Okay.
Because, if you're a kid and want to learn about you, it's really hard.
No, I that's good to know. That's good to know. Well, here we go. Podcast. You guys got it going on.
Thank you.
All right, man. Hey, love you guys. Cheers.
Here.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Iberg, what'd you think? You got to talk to your legend. Did you love it?
I want to know what you think, because you had to watch me talk to someone who you didn't know about, and you're like, "Wow, this is weird." So, what from your perspective, man? Looking at that show, what'd you get out of it?
I think it would be hilarious if we had Johnny on and then we interviewed Glenn Plake, 3v1 Glenn Plake interview, because that's what it was. That you're talking about how Johnny lights you up, the way that he was talking about Glenn Plake was the same way. He was like you could just tell he was super stoked on Plake. So that's one of the things I noticed.
Our whole generation, I mean, you can do it. That whole first generation, Plake's a god.
Yeah.
And the reason why, is because he was a character. He's the guy with the mohawk.
Yeah.
So why did we all gravitate, and every single human that had twin tip skis loved Glenn Plake?
Yeah.
Because he was the only character in the fucking sport for the previous 15, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
So, Plake is definitely someone where it's like the freestyle. He was never a freestyle skier, let's say, moguls, aerials, ballet, even though he did these things. He's just a skier, but he embodies the idea of freestyle. Do what the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And so we all just took that, and he was like this punk rock weirdo that had a mohawk from out west that didn't make sense. Like, he's on 220s, like just a god to everyone, man.
Yeah. Well, that was ill. I love that. Johnny's a great dude. I wish we could have talked to him for longer, but
me too. We didn't even get into him doing he came back just to end this. He came back in 2005 and created the Ice or Air, which he actually brought snow to San Francisco. So he did it video game 2001, and then created a big air event on Haight and Fillmore Street, natural big air for skiers and snowboarders. That was epic. Followed 2005, 2006. He brought it to Giant Stadium. Then we had the first first humongous scaffolding that was from our sport, from Johnny.
yeah.
And Johnny brought the Ice or Air there, and that was the craziest shit I ever seen. I would just smoke weed where Barry Bonds would hit home runs, and then watch skiing, all because of Jonny Moseley.
Yeah.
There's a lot more, man. I know you guys can't research him that much, but what he did in the twin tip community, for the twin tip community, and a lot of people, it goes not too noticed, and you can tell by the lack of being able to research him and people giving him his props. But big up Johnny Big Air, man.
Big up Johnny. That was that was awesome, dude. All right, who we got next week? Ed Joy.
Ed Joy, man, Quebecois' new finest. I'm claiming he's my new favorite human on skis. You are going to bug out. He has another level. All these people we're talking to are original. So we got Ed Joy next, man. Fucking stoked.
Hell yeah. I'm going to go make some lunch, Iberg. That was a good one.
My kids just got home. I'm going to go say hello to them.
All right, word.
All right, have a great day. Peace.
Adios.